Hi, and welcome back to day 2 for the People's Assembly Building Beyond Bernie. We are here today. We are going to do a lot of really awesome, fun things, but the action is starting right now. So we're going to go straight to the action. And so we are going to show you right now, as you can see a little bit on camera. This is the Men's Central Jail, where we were going to do a rally right now. Farmers, do you want to give us some more context?
Yes, so the Men's Central Jail in downtown Los Angeles is the largest county jail in California. It is located just north of downtown Los Angeles in a relatively industrial area. Right now, as you can see, there appears to be a contingent of sheriff's deputies in front of the location where the rally and car caravan is planned. So the organizer of the event, Eric Pierce, who is a Bernie delegate from Los Angeles, Eric is attempting to figure out what they can do, given that it appears that the police have put up yellow tape up there on the corner in front of the jail, so it might be difficult to protest there.
Eric, do you want to tell us some more?
Sure. Let me, sorry. I'm going to flip my camera now. So let me just do this. And let me bring me back. Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Pierce. I'm a Bernie delegate from CD28. So today we had planned a car rally at, hey, William, we had planned a car rally at the Men's Central Jail. But the police, as you can see, are trying to intimidate us. So we will carry on with speakers for today. And I look forward to, in a few minutes, having a couple of great speakers to speak on the need to defund the police and fund our communities. Fund our communities' healthcare, jobs program, Medicare for all.
Now, for context, Los Angeles has, for the first time in over a century, a Democrat who is the county sheriff. However, vote blue no matter who can land you in some pretty wild places. The current sheriff, Alex Villanueva, got elected.
PA system. How you doing? Thank you for coming.
And upon becoming
we have to
sheriff,
unmute someone. Can you do an unmute mute all, Lauren, and then we'll unmute.
So as Alex Villanueva became sheriff, his first action was to reinstate deputies who were put on leave and terminated for use of violence, for stalking, all sorts of really indefensible decisions. And so now he has really lost the confidence, not just of progressives, but really even a good portion of the political establishment in LA. He has picked fights with the County Board of Supervisors, and as a result, the County Board of Supervisors, together with the pressure that came through Black Lives Matter and through constituents, has put a measure on the ballot for this November to transfer 10% of the county's funding from the sheriff's department to other types of services like mental health, social work, and other needs that will help prevent crime, that will help prevent violence by law enforcement. So this is a really sea change in the political landscape in Los Angeles. I'll go back to Eric and see what he might have to say right now.
Eric, do you have any more comments? Or I see he's kind of muted. While Eric is unmuting himself, I just want to say that this is Mary. I wanted to say that the reason we're highlighting demonstrations at the jail today, and yesterday there was a rally outside of Soledad Prison, is to highlight the importance of looking at the budgets for jails, which is a county, usually a county budget item, and prisons, which is a state item. And most people don't know this, but local governments and the states spend a huge amount of money on incarceration. And there's also federal prisons as well. And so what we want to point out, this is part of, I think, extending the argument of BLM, Black Lives Matter, that we really need to examine the budgets of, say, local governments like LA and reprioritize. So instead of spending over 50% of the budget on police, for example, in LA, Black Lives Matter LA is arguing and has made a great case, and I think they made a good amount of headway with the city council of reprioritizing and reducing that police budget and funding things like social programs for regular people. So what we're, as Bernie delegates, would like to make a case for is that there's a need to look at other levels of government. State government, the prison budget, for example, in California is huge because of the lobbying of the prison guard union, which is one of the most powerful unions in our state. That has grown astronomically, and we'll hear later from the panel. It's a number of people who actually were involved in prison education as well as reform. And they're going to talk about whether reform actually even makes sense. After several decades of working on reform, they're realizing that maybe reform isn't enough. And Black Lives Matter, I think, is really pushing the envelope in terms of looking at abolition of jails and prisons. So that's something we'll be looking at. And then later on, we're going to have a panel on defunding the military. And so Faramars, as you're involved in that, do you want to say a few words about, the connection that we're trying to weave between, the way budgets are being spent right now and what we as progressives would like it to be spent on from the military
Absolutely.
perspective?
So as Mary said, one of the overarching themes of the People's Assembly panels that we have this weekend is this idea of a people's budget and defunding the instruments of oppression, whether that's police and sheriffs, jails and prisons, or the military industrial complex. And so one of the panels that we have this afternoon at 5 p.m. is going to be on foreign policy and demilitarization. And that follows the panel at 2 p.m. with the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, Dr. Melina Abdullah, on the people's budget, which is going to focus on the city of Los Angeles as an example for the initiative to redirect budgets from law enforcement to serving people's needs.
Yeah, that's really great. So thank you so much, Faramars, for putting up the slides and sharing. We have a really excellent lineup of very thoughtful speakers. I think the advantage we have is that the Bernie delegation has a lot of grassroots activists working in many areas. And so we've been able to kind of pull together the this panel this actually shadow convention, if you want to call it, very quickly, because we had activists with a lot of great connections and also insights into those subjects. So as Faramar said, I think this started with, just a seed of an idea when I was discussing with the people who founded this convention of sorts, shadow convention. Chin Sim is one of them, and Hanya and Sudi. So we were talking about the fact that, what is the intersection of all our progressive movements? Because a lot of us are very siloed. And so we decided that budget is actually, money is the common denominator. And so if all of us, for example, I'm a climate activist, Green New Deal, the frustration there is that, politicians are saying, this is a great idea, we'd love to fund it, but there's no money. Because, Bernie's proposal for a Green New Deal budget is, I think, $16.3 trillion dollars, sorry, trillion, it's in the trillions, but that's over the course of 10 years to really tackle climate change, because we have till 2030, that's what scientists say, to make transformational changes. But the frustration is that we don't have the money. That's what we kept being told over and over again at the federal level, especially in the state level. And so there are some activists, you'll hear from them later today at 7 p.m. They're going to talk about the fact they're going to implement it at the local level. So communities in San Francisco Bay Area, like Berkeley, has put it on their ballot, a Green New Deal proposal. Of course, tackling climate change is not sufficient at the local level, but we have to start somewhere. And as Bernie likes to say, change always comes from the bottom on up. And so that's why I think it's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to hearing that session. But what we wanted to also talk about is that people who are, and as Chinsim likes to say, what is the intersection of all our movements? If people who are in the Green New Deal climate movement, look at the big picture. I think they already are. They're supporting like Sunrise Movement, Black Lives Matter. And I think they're realizing that you have to defund the police state. I think that's a good term for it. The police state encompasses police, jails, prisons, the military, and probably things like ICE, Border Patrol, and associated sort of budgetary items. So we really have to review that and really tackle that as activists and elect officials. Like, you know, just a few weeks ago, Congress tried to cut the budget, led by people like Khanna, who's going to be speaking later today. And Bernie won, I think Bernie had originally wanted 50% cut or something like that, but they were able to get 10% discussed. That did not pass because of Democrats, our own Democrats, the ones that really still protect the military industrial complex. So we could not cut even 10%. So that's why if we all unite, all the movements, and demand changes to our budget the way Black Lives Matter is at the local level, but if we do that at the state level and the federal level, we will have way more money if we can slash those budgets and then fund all the great things that Fairmars had talked about too. Anyway, thank you so much. I wanted to see if, should we go to any rallies yet?
Eric looks like he's ready to say something.
Is he ready to say something?
But I can't tell if he's ready or if he's just frozen. Are you there, Eric? Okay, maybe not, but he will be back soon. But in the meantime, I thought it would be really nice to kick off today with a video from yesterday's rally. So this was a speaker that we actually didn't get to feature yesterday at the Bruce's Beach rally. And so I'd like to hear from her, and then we can hear from the other speakers as well from that event. And we can see, you know, hear in their own words what they're fighting for and why. So let's go to that. Can you go ahead and mute?
I live by these words. I think all of us here, even though we don't know the people that, we don't personally know the people that experience these horrible situations, Andres Guardado, Vanessa Guillen, I could go on and on, right? We don't know these people, but we're here to fight for them because that's what we do. That's what our movement does. We're here to fight for the person that we don't know.
Yes.
This isn't just a hashtag for us. It's not something trendy. This is a movement. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. Not until we accomplish what we're here to do. Racial justice for everybody. That's why we say Black Lives Matter.
Yay!
Queer lives matter.
Yay!
Abolish ICE.
Yay!
Defund the police.
Yay!
So yes, that's basically all I wanted to say.
Yay!
Everybody for coming out. Let's do this.
Yay!
Great.
So that was from LA.
Yeah,
Eric,
so
are you ready? We can go to you
Right.
before we go to the other one.
We can see the police behind us.
Okay.
Right. And, yeah. And put this head on out because, like I said, that's the Senate. So, yeah.
So
So we
as
can't-
notorious as the Los Angeles Police Department is for its use of deadly force, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department actually has an even worse track record. And so the protest here in front of the men's central jail facing the LA County Sheriff's Department is very appropriate for the topic.
So, Farmaz, can I interrupt you? Because we're about to have our speaker.
Please go for it.
Sure, go.
Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to have Reverend Somerville is going to share a few words. But before Reverend Somerville goes on, we're especially happy to have Kat, who's moving from a People's Party, who's going to talk a little bit about moving beyond Bernie from their perspective. And then we'll move it over to Reverend Somerville, who will talk about what defunding the police really means and where the funding goes. All right, are you ready, Kat?
Yep.
Okay. Let me just. All right, you're on, Kat.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kat. I am the chair of Our Revolution Los Angeles, as well as a member of Movement for a People's Party. And I just wanted to say a few words about what our movement is now that Bernie Sanders is no longer a presidential candidate or the leader of the movement. And I think Bernie Sanders said it best when he said, "Not me, us." This movement is not about one man. This movement is not about following a leader. This movement is about grassroots organizing and the people coming together to create a world and a system that works for us and is led by us. We can't follow one man and his vision because, in all honesty, Bernie was the compromise. We have to work for what we believe is right, what we believe is fair, and what we believe is just. And it really is, it's up to us now. And we do believe that that movement goes beyond the bounds of the two-party system, which is why we're working with Movement for a People's Party, because we want to form a party that really does speak for us, for the people, by the people, outside of corporate influence, outside of money, and outside of the corrupt nature of politics as we've seen it for the past 200 years. So that's what we have to do. We have to band together. We have to organize. We have to hit the streets. We have to come stand outside of jails with cops right behind us. And we have to fight for what, we have to not pull back. We have to fight for what is right and what is just. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. All right, thank you. Next, we're going to have Pastor Somerville. He's going to say a few words.
Hello, my people.
Hold on, Pastor. There you go, Pastor. You're good.
Hello, my people. Hopefully you can hear me good through my face mask. But my purpose here is to share more specifically the overarching issue of why Black Lives Matter had to be brought about anyway. It was brought under not the current administration that we have, but also under the Obama administration, that they did nothing about it. And so now it's boiling over all over again. Black Lives Matter movement is the civil rights movement of our time, is the Reconstruction movement of our time. And so now we are calling in this Black Lives Matter movement to defund the police. What does defund the police mean? Well, first, it doesn't mean we're abolishing the police. We're not saying that. And we're not saying get rid of the police. We're not saying eradicate the police. We're not saying, in the words of NWA in our quotes, excuse my French, parlez-vous français, we're not saying fuck the police. We're saying defund the police, which basically suggests reallocation of funds. Reallocation of funds towards the people's budget, which involves housing, public transportation, youth and child development, environmental justice, as well as reimagining what crisis management looks like. Because once we do that, that's what democracy looks like. And so as we go forward to call upon our politicians, most specifically here in LA, to restructure their budget in funding the people that voted for those politicians, just as much as reallocating the funds in what we do when we talk about city contracts. So defunding the police means refunding the voters that voted for the politicians that put them in there. Thank you.
Thanks, Pastor. And thanks to everyone who showed up today. I'm Eric Pierce. I'm a Bernie delegate from CD 28. I want to thank everyone who is on this wonderful convention today. And as we move forward to a better future that works for all of us, not just the 1%, as Bernie used to say. I love all of you, and take care.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's it for me.
All right.
Thank you, Eric. So yeah, that was the rally there. See, that's the outside the men's jail, right? Did I get that right, in LA? So I think that, for a lot of people who have just joined us, they're probably wondering why we are doing these live events. As Lauren said yesterday to our audience, this has really probably not been tried before for a virtual or for a convention where you integrate sort of voices from the grassroots. And those of us who are planning this, as I mentioned, Lauren, Chinsim, Sudi, Hania, and Fairmars also got involved in this too. We were thinking that the format that we want is to actually elevate the voices from the grassroots, because a lot of us are grassroots activists after all. So a lot of these folks are our friends. So we felt that the Democratic Convention was really silencing us Bernie delegates. And so we wanted to have a platform to voice the things that we think are really important, basically Bernie's platform. But we are moving this forward, even though Bernie's not our nominee. And so we want to continue to amplify those voices, which other than Black Lives Matter have been somewhat more silent because of the virus. So we feel that right now is a good time. And Lauren, a lot of credit due to her. She had this great idea of using technology. So because of people using Zoom so much, and because we can live stream to different platforms, this is being live streamed to several Facebook pages. One of the Facebook pages has 65,000 Bernie supporters, the other 7,000. So we think we're reaching a pretty broad audience. So we wanted to, as delegates to the Democratic Convention, provide a platform for other grassroots activists. So that's why we are doing these physical rallies, even though it's kind of hard to curate physical events. They're not as predictable as, say, films, but we think that it's very worthwhile. So today we're going to have this morning some various events. And I think I'm getting a signal. Lauren, are we ready to go to another event yet?
I was just hoping I could add to that a bit.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So another thing that is cool is it's not just that we're hosting live events, it's that we're finding live protests that are already happening for things that are facing local communities. And we're trying to give them a platform so that more people can see what's going on and help in whatever way they can. And I think that's one of the things that I really wanted to achieve out of bringing all of this virtual, is a way that we could bring everyone together so that, Bernie Sanders' average donation was $27, right? Like, he crowdfunded his campaign amongst all of us. And there's plenty of other people out there who are trying to get into there, trying to fight the big money, trying to get their names heard. And so we can use this as an opportunity to to spread the word about people who are fighting the good fight in different communities and trying to step up and have an elected role. So I'm wearing my Jake Tonkel pin today. So this is my plug for Jake Tonkel, and he's running for city council in District 6 in San Jose. And he's also going to be speaking on our Green New Deal panel later. But if you know of some great local candidates who are standing up and saying the unpopular thing because it needs to be said, like let's try to get us some publicity. So feel free to give their information in the chat. Another thing I'd like to say about the live in-person events is that, like, let's be real, we're in the middle of a pandemic like none of us have ever seen or imagined probably before. And I know for myself, as someone who wants to be like an activist, who wants to be out in the streets protesting and helping, like, not everyone's in that situation to be able to participate in that way, especially right now. And so with these, with bringing you to the live protests online, we can allow these rallies and protests to get more attendance and allow you to participate as well and feel like you know, you can be involved. So yeah, thanks for joining us. We just showed. We were talking to Eric Pierce, who's over at the men's LA jail. We also showed a little clip from Bruce's speech yesterday, and I'd be glad to go to the next clip of Bruce's speech and show some of those pictures. Does that sound good?
I was just wondering, just checking in, when do you want Bill, our grassroots anti-fracking movement musician, to perform? Because we've invited him. And
yeah, Bill's got some great songs, and I cannot wait to hear them. So okay. Yeah, why don't we go to a song with Bill?
Do a song with Bill, and then we'll kind of intersperse it between rallies and music. So Bill, do you want to, oh, we got to unmute him, or let's see.
He should be a co-host.
Okay. You can unmute yourself, Bill, and you want to sing a song for us? Can you hear us? Let's see. Oh, I think he's, can you unmute yourself?
No, yeah.
Okay, there you go. Do you want to do a song for us and then we'll go to another rally recorded?
Just say that,
yeah.
Peter is like my biggest hero. And I think he had it right years ago. And he was very patient.
Bill, your sound's not great for us. Do you think is it maybe an internet problem? It's kind of choppy, but I think for the music, we want it to be the best it can.
So this is, I just saying that Pete Seeger is to me the ultimate when it came to listening and trying to act and having hope for people.
Sorry, you're breaking up. We can't really hear your words anymore. Sorry.
Okay, well, I don't know what to do. I tried to get this to work with my iPad, and I didn't have any success. So maybe it's because it's on my Android.
You want to try a song?
So this is designed to be a sing-along, and it's my hope.
Bill, I'm sorry, it's really not working. It was much better earlier. Can you do whatever you were logged in with earlier and come back? Because earlier I heard you great.
Maybe it's just a location. Sometimes a location matters, and if you're sitting somewhere else, look for the bars, the little bar. Sorry.
I haven't really done anything different.
Oh, okay. It's just probably the internet. Sometimes the bandwidth.
We'll have to come back to you.
We'll have to come back to you. Sorry, Bill.
Sound.
We can't really hear you.
Maybe you could email me the so I could use my iPad.
You want me to email you the link again? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Mary, can you connect with Bill?
Okay.
I had a link for yesterday. I didn't have it for today, so I can try that.
Thanks. Sorry. Oh, technology. But we'll get it. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So I just want to mention to people again that Lauren was the mastermind who came up with the vision. But of course, it relies on people having reliable internet. But it's been working out really well. Yesterday, we had lots of people at Soledad Prison, Manhattan Beach, the rallies. So it's just that Bill is in a very rural area in Aromas near where I live. So I know about his bandwidth issues, which reminds me, we should really be fighting for, instead of rural electrification, that was a fight during the New Deal. We need rural internet, high-speed internet. So
That's true.
This is one of the reasons why, it's really unfair to rural communities, a lot of them poor, that don't have access to the high-speed internet. This is another thing that our government should be investing in when we defund police and prisons and military. Other countries have done it. So anyway, maybe what we could do is at this time, if you want, do you want to give our audience that have joined us some time to comment while we're getting ready for the next clip? You want to do that? Open up the mics a bit?
Sure.
Okay. Anyone want to raise your hand if you want to say where you're from and what you're thinking of this morning in terms of, our goal for all this is to build, building beyond Bernie, continuing the movement, because it's really about us, not just Bernie. And I think Bernie would appreciate. So if you have any thoughts that you want to share with us this morning, raise your hand and we'll unmute you. So do I have any? Oh, okay. Is that Paul? Let me just unmute you here. Let's see. Oh, you're already unmuted, Paul. So go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Paul Huntley. I live in Gilroy, Bernie Delegate in 16 and 20. And, like most of us, I think I'm feeling a little bit shut out of the grander pomp and circumstance of the convention this year, which is probably a good thing. But I've been devoting some time to doing phone banking for progressive congressional candidates. So people like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, there's Alex Morse coming up in September, Hassan Lecky, another young congresswoman in Massachusetts, 4th, Jen Perlman. So I've kind of jumped into these other activities as a way to sort of deal with the trauma associated with this convention. So that's what I've been doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else have any comments or thoughts you would like to share this morning with your Sunday coffee? Oh, okay. Is it Simia? Sorry, I'm not trying to pronounce.
Samia.
Samia, go ahead, Samia. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having this and sharing this beautiful platform. Again, my name is Samia Assad. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm a CD1 alternate delegate for Bernie. This morning, I feel like there's a lot of weight on my shoulders to have to, as a Democrat, push a Democratic platform that does not include me. I'm a Palestinian American, I'm Muslim. It was heartbreaking to see how we were shunned out of the main messaging and our own agency of how we are described in the DNC platform. So it's been really hard. But I am all gung-ho about building with Bernie community post this election, and I'm looking forward for the next 4 years and really taking over the majority party and a new generation that will see eye to eye our vision. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Yeah, a lot of us feel the same way, the frustration with the Democratic Party not really letting us have a voice and even having a platform. Like I voted no on the platform, as many delegates did, because it left out Medicare for all. And we felt it could have been stronger in other areas. So yeah, share your sentiment. Anyone else have any thoughts? Fairmars, did you want to say anything?
Well, I'm really glad to see so many people have tuned in even before the start of our official program with our panels this afternoon. It really speaks to how people really yearn for something more than just a series of talking heads this week at what is being billed as the Democratic National Convention. But to me, this is the real convention, the People's Assembly, and it's participatory. So people yesterday were asking lots of questions and, even debating in the chat, and seeing so many delegates like Samia from New Mexico right now. And I think yesterday we had delegates from Michigan and Florida and other states. So even though the initiative for this People's Assembly came out of the California Bernie delegation, we've really welcomed the participation nationwide. It's really inspiring.
Thanks, Fairmars. Yeah, very eloquent. Any other comments? I mean, right now, or Lauren, are you ready to go to let us know? Well, otherwise we'll just do commentary for a little bit with folks in the audience.
I saw Melanie's hand up, I think.
Oh,
But
sorry.
what are you waiting for me to go to, the rally?
I think
from
you said you had a clip or
Yeah,
something.
I do. Okay.
Did you let Melanie? I don't see Melanie's hand raised.
It's a physical hand.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, Melanie, go ahead.
Sorry about that. For some reason, I don't have that on my Zoom. I have everything else, but no hand raised.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I've lived in the southern, what they call the South Bay of Los Angeles for 30 years, and I'm an environmentalist, and we're working very hard to get a candidate whose name is Fatima Iqbal Zubair to our state assembly. Her Democratic challenger is a man named Mike Gibson, who takes $800,000 from oil and gas companies, and also is definitely a neoconistic Democrat. So I've been working very hard to hope that we can get her in phone banking every weekend. Also, a young woman, well, a woman you had on yesterday, Maria Estrada, running against Anthony Rendon, which I'm at a loss for words how gang-like Mr. Rendon is. And he was the sole reason that Medicare for All didn't progress in Southern California. So I really highly recommend, as Paul has spoken about, national people, please look at your local running folks who you can help and support in many, many ways. Also, I'm going to stick a plug in for the 5th Peace Week. There'll be a Facebook post for it shortly, and down in the area of San Pedro, which is the harbor area for Los Angeles. It's the home of the Navy for a lot of Los Angeles. And for the last 5 years, we've done anti-war over Labor Day, and we hope you can join us virtually. And also, if you can come in person, mask and social distance, we are gonna demonstrate out in front of the USS Iowa. Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. Any other thoughts? That's very great thoughts there about how we can participate in our local elections, because those are always very important, and activists have more control often in terms of electing local people than at the state and federal level. Laura, did you have something you want to say? I see. I lost my hand raising feature.
You said Laura, correct?
Laura, I thought I saw the box highlighted like she was going to say something.
She was just unmuted. But maybe if she wants to say something, then. we can unmute you. You can raise your hand, or you
Let
can.
me know if you want to go. Oh, Victoria has her hand raised. Let me just unmute her.
Hi.
Hi, Victoria. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Hey, I've been busy on social media while I've been listening to all of this. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for putting this together. I think it's awesome that you guys are standing up and speaking out. And this is the only way we can. The revolution will not be televised, right? But getting on social media, there are so many trolls and there are so many bullies on there right now trying to force us to vote for their Biden-Harris ticket. I suggest that your response is when they support Medicare for all, I'll be happy to support them. We all have to have a consistent message. We're drawing the line on Medicare for all. I think it's something we can all get behind. Just saying. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria. Great comments. Anyone else would like to speak? I'm sorry, can't see hand raised very well. Fairmars, are you there? Are you? Okay, I see. No one
Hi,
else.
this is Isaac. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, Isaac. Yeah,
Oh,
feel free to
hey.
jump in. Thank you for
Thanks so
joining
much.
us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me this morning, Mary. Sorry it took me a while to get, but I overheard somebody recently talking about Maria Estrada running against Anthony Rendon, the Speaker of the California State Assembly. And I would like to chime in briefly on that topic. I have a good friend, Chris Robeson, who's a fellow member of the LA County Democratic Central Committee. And he's been around that committee and our movement for many, many years. And the speaker a moment ago mentioned something about mobsters or something along those lines, and the methods by which those in power use their money to maintain that power is very similar to the way the mafia works. And Anthony Rendon in particular is said to have control as the Speaker of the Assembly of the entire LA County Democratic Central Committee. The single payer universal health care as a human right has been a California Democratic Party platform for over 10 years. The California state legislature passed a single payer bill through both houses of the legislature when there was a Republican governor there to veto it. So being on the platform, being supported by the vast majority of Democrats, there's no reason why, as Democrats, we couldn't have accomplished single payer health care. After that Republican governor vetoed it, we got a 2/3 majority of Democrats in houses of the assembly and a Democratic governor. So many of us were very excited. Now we've got the Democratic Party in control of all three branches of the process that need to pass the law. And a similar single payer law was written, SB 562. The California State Senate passed it. And then when it was time for the Assembly to pass it, one man, the Speaker of the Assembly, Anthony Rendon, blocked it. He didn't block it from passing the Assembly. Literally blocked it being able to be voted on. When I go to the California Democratic Party conventions, I can't help but notice flanking the stage on both sides, frequently I see huge lighted advertisements for health insurance companies. Now, the health insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry, and to some extent the hospital industry, opposes single-payer universal health care. The CEOs of those companies make $1 million every single year, paid for by your taxes. And why is it that our tax money should be going to pay incomes of individuals who make many, many multiples of what the president makes or the governor makes? It seems like an obvious invitation for pure corruption. Suddenly I see Mary speaking, but I can't hear you. Mary, are you talking to me? My audio is
Are
ending.
you talking to me? She is muted still. Maybe she's not
hear
talking
me.
to. We can hear you.
I thought somebody was trying to interrupt me, but I couldn't hear. But apology for the interruption. Let me know if I should stop. But so the process by which the single payer health care should have been passed in the state of California. And as a reminder, in Canada, they didn't used to have single payer universal health care as a human right, but Kiefer Sutherland's grandfather, I believe in their state or province of Saskatchewan, passed it. And one something like that is passed in a country, it's very difficult not to provide it to everybody, because when you realize that you can get the health care you need when you need it, regardless of whether you have $1 in your pocket or a penny or $1 million. Most of the people in the country realize this is the way we do it. The best research we have shows that single payer universal health care as a human right, aka Medicare, will 68,000 lives every single year at a minimum, and $450 billion every single year at a minimum. And if you want to know where that comes from, there was a recent Yale University study published in the Lancet Medical Journal that found those to be the most accurate, though conservative, estimates. So why is it that we don't have it? I was talking about the advertisements for the health insurance companies at the Democratic Party conventions.
You know, you're breaking, sorry, Eric, Isaac, you're breaking up just a little bit. I just also wanted to give, I noticed that Nick Gaines, as your friend, has joined. I was just gonna see if you can give him a little space and we can check on your sound. It was breaking up a little.
Only a very little. Was it?
Oh, okay.
Was that
Okay.
happening for anyone else?
For
Because
me,
it might be your internet,
it could
Mary.
be
I
my
think it's your
internet. Sorry about that. Okay, maybe I am having. So anyway, but I just want to let you know that Nick has his hand raised. So.
Oh, great.
But go ahead.
Nick, let's hear from Nick.
Okay.
Welcome.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt here. Good morning, everybody. Nick here from CD30. I think that this is a really interesting time for me to chime in here because, Isaac, I feel like, especially we're all among friends here, I think we've settled the debate over whether within our movement, single payer is the right direction to go, right? We all know that that's what needs to happen at the national level. But what's interesting now is we're starting to talk more about if it can't happen at the national level, what do we do at the state level? As you rightly pointed out, every study, every credible study that's come out has shown, including from right-wing groups like the Heritage Foundation, that a single payer system will save money over the system we have now. The issue, though, that I think Bernie kind of got at, but that as a country, we haven't done a good enough job socializing. And one of the things I hope this movement here can do over the next few years is really figure out how to crack this nut is we are going to have to raise taxes as we eliminate the people that the money that people are spending on the private healthcare system, right? and yesterday, I was asked by Mary, talk about some of the panels from yesterday. Maria Estrada, who is one of the biggest champions that we have fighting right now, and she's in one hell of a race.
Running against Anthony Rendon, yes.
Running against the speaker, yeah, exactly. Striking at the heart of the machine, so to speak. One thing though that I thought was really interesting that I think we need to figure out as a movement is she said we know that she's an advocate for single payer, but she also was against the gas tax and sought to repeal the gas tax. But again, the economics of the single payer system, as we classically understand taxation, will only work if we raise taxes on everybody. That's why yesterday, some of you may have heard me talk about the need to expropriate the San Francisco Mint, to pursue more post-Keynesian economics, to have more things like public banking. But we need to be honest with ourselves. And under the model that exists for public health financing, how do we have an alternative to raising taxes unless we move into a post-Keynesian mindset where we don't need to have a balanced budget, which is really the heart of the issue here?
Absolutely, Nick. And I'd like to take exception to a couple of points. You suggested in order to have Medicare for all, we need to raise taxes on everybody. I don't think that's correct. Now,
but it's in Bernie's plan. I mean, again, I'm for Medicare for all. I just think that we need to start it's in the plan right now.
It's
right
quite
now Medicare
possible.
is paid for with a payroll tax.
I remember that there were some debates and disagreements between Bernie and Elizabeth Warren on how specifically to manage and readjust the current financing system of healthcare. And Elizabeth Warren said she's not going to raise taxes on everybody. And what Bernie said is he's gonna. He didn't want to try to color it in a way that doesn't seem completely upfront. Now, there are a number of ways you can address the issues of cost. And one of the ways is to look at what's happened to our tax system over the course of the last many decades. Suggesting that we have to raise taxes on everybody when the richest people in this country have bought off the government in order to turn the tax structure on its head, reversing many decades of income tax structure. When the income tax was introduced into this country, it was sold to the country as a rich person's tax. It was and should only apply to people who are rich, however that is defined. Now, I spoke to Robert Reich about where the cutoff should be some years ago when he first came out with the movie Inequality for All. And he said that at that time, the cutoff should be around 60,000. So income tax rates should be 0% for the first roughly $60,000 of everyone's income. Once you get past 60,000, or maybe whatever the median income is now, you can start raising rates on the margins of income above that. Now, in the past, we never had billionaires. In the 30s when, or 30s and 40s when FDR was in the White House, he proposed 100% income tax on incomes above roughly $3 million in today's dollars. I don't think that we need to go as far as 100% income tax on any particular margin. And they ended up, I think, implementing somewhere between 94 and 98%. Again, that's only on money, income annually above 3 million. The point I'm making here is that if we address tax system in a truly progressive way, so that nobody has to pay taxes on the amount of money that a family needs to survive easily, comfortably, taking care of the necessities, and you can tax at whatever rate is needed to cover the rest of your expenses. So on Maria Estrada's opposition to the California state increase on gas tax, there are differing opinions about sin taxes. You don't
sorry, Isaac, I just want to let Hallie Mack, is it Haley Mack, has had this hand raised or her hand raised for quite a while. Can we let them join? And if we could have everyone just maybe do like no more than a minute or two, because we want to let other people join in. So is that all right? Hold your comments.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Love to hear from.
Okay, is it Haley? Jump in. You can.
Yes, it's Haley. Thank
Sorry.
you. I just wanted to say that, you know, it's important to look at this. People are going to pay for healthcare one way or another. Well, actually, I'll be paying less. I'm on a fixed income, and I've been on Medicare since I was in my early 30s. And I'm going to get a whole lot more benefit out of Medicare for All than I'm getting out of my Medicare Advantage plan right now. But because I think right now, at least one of the bills has that if you're earning under $30,000 a year, that you would not be paying into that, and that would certainly cover me. Right now, people, one way or another, people are paying for healthcare, whether that is something that they're paying to their employer for their benefit, or if they're paying it some other way. And
can you give me a pen?
Nearly everybody, nearly most of the families in this country will be paying less in the federal tax for healthcare than they are paying right now in premiums, deductibles, whatever they're paying to their employer, that the employer may be matching.
Haley, could you say a little bit louder? You're kind of like going quiet and off. It's not consistent, the sound, at least for me. Sorry.
Yeah, it sounded to me like somebody else had had themselves unmuted. And I'm not sure if that was the problem. Any rate, people will be paying less generally in taxes, yes, but less than they are currently paying in premiums, deductibles, co-payments, surprise billing, whatever it is that they're paying as their portion to their employer. And of course, right now, I'm not sure that I've heard this mentioned, but 27 million people in the country have just lost insurance that was attached to jobs that they've lost through the pandemic. And that's all I've got to comment on. Thank you.
Nick's hand is up.
Oh.
So yeah, I just wanted to kind of clarify something I was saying. I agree actually with everything that Isaac said and everything that Haley just said. You do end up paying for healthcare. That was kind of the point that I was getting at. But what I think that we have kind of missed in this pandemic is we've seen, I think it's $3.5 trillion that the federal government has spent directly, and who knows how many trillions of dollars of quantitative easing that the Federal Reserve has done to bail out corporate America. But what about that level of spending, and what about that level of investment in the Green New Deal, in Medicare for All, in social programs that benefit the 99%? I think that part of the issue, right, is that there has to be some level of taxation, because if you read into a lot of the kind of underlying academia behind modern monetary theory, taxation acts as a kind of burn rate so that you don't end up with complete unrestrained inflation, which, by the way, we're not victim to because all of our debt is held in our own currency. But that said, some level of taxation is going to be needed. And as the previous speaker said, Haley, I believe, people pay taxes anyways. But I think the issue is that we're not doing a good enough job kind of owning up to how our system is actually going to work. And so we let the media kind of get away with, we don't have a plan to how to transition to our new healthcare system. Yes, we do. You stop paying all the money that you're paying now, and you pay a very, very modest premium. I have government healthcare myself. I pay $25 a month. Do I consider that a tax? No. But I'm paying for healthcare. So
but
that piece
that is.
Sorry, go ahead, Isaac.
When you say no, you're not paying a tax. I think that's sort of the difference between Bernie's right up front saying, yes, I'm going to tax you, and the question about, well, if the government comes in and says You are an American. You are required to go out and purchase a product from essentially the mafia. Health insurance industry are complete criminal organizations. And we're told you have to go buy that. To me, if you're paying any money to an insurance company, that's a tax because the government is saying you have to pay it. So all of a sudden, instead of paying insurance company premiums, co-pays, deductibles, out-of-pocket expenses, etc., now you're paying much, much less money as a so-called tax that goes to the government to pay the healthcare workers and not criminal middlemen of insurance companies. So to me, that's a tax cut. To Bernie, he's like 100% upfront. Yes, I'm going to tax you. Well, in my opinion, the government is already taxing you by ordering you to buy insurance. So when we get rid of those insurance companies, we're getting a tax cut. We're just sending it to people who don't get paid millions of dollars. They get paid a reasonable income as a government employee. And I don't know what the president is paid. I think it's somewhere around $400,000. I don't really mind in general some of my tax money going to pay a few $100,000 to our president, but I definitely mind my tax money going to pay multi-million-dollar salaries of CEOs of insurance companies.
We have a hand raised from Haley, and I also wanted to just ask a question. I mean, we are spending a lot of time talking about taxation, but actually this particular and I think it's very worthwhile, but this particular assembly was kind of organized around the concept of what can we also cut? Because there's also, I mean, I agree with you all that we need to change our taxation, but what about cutting things like police, jails, prisons, the military? Wouldn't that free up a lot of money for the programs you were all referring to? And I'll give the floor to Haley. She has her, and then let's see who else is there. And then I think Nick is next. Feel free, everyone, to jump in. We're having a kind of a freewheeling discussion, and we're going to go at some point, if Lauren is still there, to another demonstration. But this is a very dynamic conversation. So go ahead, Haley.
So this is going in a different direction, but I just wanted to say that the Hill is reporting this weekend that there's a lot of pressure on Joe Biden, which I anticipated, for him to give up the public option afterwards. So, you know, I don't know if we're looking at 2008 redux, but at any rate, I was surprised to see that in the media already before the convention. That's all I've got.
It may be time for our movement to start fighting for a complete government takeover of all aspects of healthcare. Because when we hear things like that, that not only is Biden going to continue to oppose single-payer universal healthcare as a human right, but he's also going to pull out from under the American people even offer of a public option, which in itself is a slight improvement where we are now, but nowhere near what we need, which is healthcare as a human right.
Okay, I'm
we need
sorry.
people to wake up.
I want to give the floor. We have a new person raise their hand, Isaac, Liliana, and then Nick. Let's see if there anyone else. Just want to give the floor to some new people. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead,
No
Liliana.
problem. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. This is my first time tuning in, and I'm having a really great time actually as I'm listening to this. And I just wanted to contribute to the portion regarding the reallocation of funds from defunding the police and incarceration and ICE. And in my small town, our local library burned down maybe like 6 months ago. And it was the only closest library to us, and I have toddlers who I regularly took there. But it just made me realize the importance, especially during the pandemic and schools being closed out, how important the library is to a community. So I just wanted to suggest people keep in mind that aside from, or not just aside, but in general, when it comes to reallocating funds to community services, things like recreational parks, libraries, but also local gardening communities. I know that in some states, I think in New Jersey, it's prevailing where people are investing in like community gardens where residents can go and not only contribute and participate in growing food, but also if they need food to access fresh vegetables and fruits. And I think in like one of our neighboring towns, they also have programs where they can have children participate and learn, and then later on, hands-on activities with milking cows and then making cheese and stuff like that. And I thought that was really great. I didn't know that that even existed. But I think that one of the things I enjoy about this conversation is that we're touching on things that sometimes these things don't occur to other people's minds, or they don't know that they exist. And having these conversations to come up with solutions and ideas of not just, the main top 3 topics, but like broadening it and expanding it to what we've seen other cities and counties and states do that work, that are immediate solutions and immediate proactive activities for learning and growth and self-development, but also being able to produce for yourself in case of emergency situations, just like this pandemic has shown. So I think that that's something that should continue to be regularly spoken about, is not just like, recreational parks, and like I mentioned earlier, libraries, but also things like gardening, or, it can even expand into individual activities. We all know sports are great and dance is great. But I just think that I personally would enjoy hearing more ideas on what has worked in their communities that are maybe out of the box.
Yeah, those are great ideas, Liliana. Basically, the kinds of services that people at the grassroots and communities need. So thank you for that. I think Nick has his hand raised next, and if anyone else wants to share, just if you don't know how to raise your hand, you go to participants and you click on that or hover over it, and you'll see you'll see an option to raise hand. So Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, no, please, other people do jump in. I'm thinking of this as kind of like if any of you used to watch that 70s show where they had the scenes in the basement going between everybody. This is just us, a bunch of friends talking about the issues together.
Yes, Bernie friends talking.
I want to dovetail off what Liliana just said, thinking outside the box, and connect it with what you were saying, Mary, about what this panel is supposed to be, kind of the what do we cut? Here's something outside the box for you. Don't cut anything. And I want to see chat lighting up here from what I'm about to say. Do not cut a cent from any public program.
What about the police?
Reason. Not even the police. The police, we need to invest in training, continuous, around the year training.
Prisons?
Here's the issue. Prisons, that's different because you're talking about reforming the system of incarceration and completely rethinking the way that we do rehabilitation.
Military, how about that?
Increase spending on everything. And here's why. Because what I'm proposing is fundamentally shifting away from the deficit-driven model for public financing that we have seen in the last 40 years. By basically constantly framing it as we cut this to invest in this, we divide this country into interest groups. And we have seen the amberizing of our institutions as a result over the last 40 years. What I'm proposing is a different kind of grand bargain than what the Simpson-Bowles Commission proposed in 2013, where if we don't behave, then everybody loses and we only get to choose what gets cut. Instead, what I'm proposing and what I think that we need to fight for as a new model of public finance is one that invests heavily. A great man once said, decades go by where nothing happens and weeks happen where decades happen. I want to see a bill signed by a Democratic Congress on February 1st, 2021, 10 days in the Biden administration, that is $100 trillion for 100 years. How do you pay for it? You might be asking me. We'll turn into Venezuela. We'll turn into Germany of the 20s. No, those countries relied on an international finance system that they did not control. They relied on a currency system that they did not control. They relied on borrowing in other people's currency. You ask me, would I cut the Defense Department? No, I wouldn't, because this is something that a lot of people on the left, including my good friend AOC, who I worked on her campaign, what she said is that we need a system that thinks like this, that we need to invest more in people and have modern monetary theory. But the issue is that system relies on a reserve currency of the United States dollar. And that system is underwritten by the United States military. It's a fact. We can work as true leftists to create a non-imperial system, a non-coercive system where we can still invest in those things. But for the moment, in the system that we have, we need to use the resources that are available to us. And what we can do is spend $10 trillion, $100 trillion, whatever it takes, in a Green New Deal, in Medicare for all, and in a Marshall Plan for all the working peoples of the world, with the United States dollar as the underwriter of it. And I would love to hear
this is
somebody
really great.
respond to this.
This is really great, very thought-provoking. I was going to see if Marcy, who is our foreign policy sort of wonk, who is going to be on the panel this afternoon. But before you say anything, Marcy, I want to give you the floor. But I couldn't restrain myself. Nick, as an environmentalist, a climate activist, I do want to remind you that we live on a finite planet, and in order to have I don't think we can afford, to tell you the truth, the military budget, for example. It's also very destructive and would work at odds with, say, a Green New Deal. So I don't think that's compatible. So I respectfully disagree. And also, I do think that even the police, I don't think we can continue to fund them at that level. They are I think in LA, 54% of the budget or something like that. So, excuse me, from an environmental perspective, I have to say, I respectfully disagree, but I would love to hear from all of you.
This is the kind of disagreement that I wanted to spur, and I will explain after other people have had a chance to chime in. I'd love to explain my reasoning.
But I love your thought-provoking comments, and I want to give the floor to Marcy. Are you there, Marcy? I've unmuted
I'm
you.
here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mary, and thank you, Nick, for that eloquent presentation. I understand that it is important not to frame our arguments as though we only have a certain amount of dollars and we must balance the books. It certainly, when the government wants to spend trillions of dollars to the banks overnight during a bank, when the banks were collapsing, they had no problem doing that. I would just suggest that, along the lines of what Mary is thinking, that regardless of the cost, of the actual monetary cost, there is great human cost to militarism. And so even if you could afford all of that, why would we ever want to invest more in a death economy? And by that, I mean, you're building bombs to kill people. The goal is to be prepared to kill people, as opposed to shifting our focus to diplomacy. So I wouldn't want to spend what we're spending on the military, even if we had all the money in the world. I wouldn't want to spend what we're spending on the police or jails, because they're not the answer, and they create tremendous human and community suffering. So that's what I have to say. But I also invite all of you to stay with us. At 5, we'll be talking about foreign policy. I'll be talking about the letter that many of you signed, urging Joe Biden to hire new foreign policy advisors. We have over 470 delegates who've signed on to that letter so far. And,
can you say what time your talk is, just to remind our folks?
It's at 5 p.m. So I'll be talking about
Pacific time, for those of you who are from out of state.
Right. And I'll be naming some of the names. I think we need to start outing these people who redacted torture reports under the Bush torture reports, who are really contractors for military companies. They are corporate lobbyists. That's who they are. Some of these people who are leading the Biden foreign policy team are nothing but corporate lobbyists who sit on the board of Booz Allen, a private equity firm with huge investments in the military. Michelle Flournoy, she's one of them, and she is a top contender for Secretary of Defense. No, we can't let that happen. We have to start organizing now. We'll be outing some of these people during the DNC convention, and we've created some Twitter tags that'll be fun to use. And we're looking into also, operative words, looking in to creating a Zoom account for the DNC convention where we can have 2 rooms. One would be a room where Bernie delegates can hang out and respond to what's going on. And reporters could also go and visit another room, which would be a press room, where they could interview delegates and get official comments. So that's what we were talking about on our strategy call just earlier today. And then at 5 o'clock, I'll be talking more about the people on the team who we object to, think tanks, excuse me, think tanks that offer progressive visions, as well as the webinar that the DNC is hosting on foreign policy, which is Tuesday. Some of you may be interested in that. Thank you.
I just want to say I saw Khanna in the room. She's one of our organizers. So Nick, is it okay if we let, I don't know if you want to jump in now, Khanna?
Of course, no, always.
Nick has a very thought-provoking sort of proposal that we actually fund all our great programs that progressives want, you know, like Medicare for All, Green New Deal. What else was there? Lots of maybe things like free college tuition, basically everything, but also continue to fund the military. So that really got my attention. And also, well, not necessarily the prison, right? But continue to fund the police. So we are responding to that comment, which really is a very provoking one. So if do you have any thoughts? And I also welcome anyone else who's in the Zoom room, just raise your hands. If you can't raise your hands, you can try to wave at me or something. I'll try to, go ahead.
Linda O wrote, no, you do not have to balance the books for the federal government. So I just wanted to share that from Linda O.
Linda
you do not
O,
have
okay,
to balance
yes.
the book.
I agree, yes.
And I think she's right based on modern monetary.
Yes, we can't have deficit spending. It's just that the future generations have to pay for it, and you can also pay it through inflation.
Technically, not technically. That's not the case.
Well, let's see.
That's the
Oh, now we're
mythology
getting lots of.
from old economic thinking.
Hey, can I
But
speak?
It's
Yes,
connected to
yes.
the
Let's some more. Sorry, we've got a whole bunch of people raising their hand. Let me just try to. Are you unmuted?
Also,
Laura.
Laura Rivera Fisher had requested to speak.
Oh,
in the
sure. Yeah,
chat.
go ahead. Could you help unmute Fairmont?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Can you hear me?
you. Yes.
Okay. So I'm not part of your in crowd. So I just thought I was getting really antsy about this whole conversation. And I'm a grandmother of 7 grandchildren. I'm going to be 67 this month. I've been an activist since I was a teenager, and I worked really hard to stop the Vietnam War. That's where my activism started during the civil rights movement era. And it's very frustrating for me as a Mexican woman, Mexican grandmother, to hear this conversation, especially about don't touch the military, don't defund the police. We're talking about a colonial system. We have a caste system in the United States. Let's get real about it. Let's look at our real history. I know white people don't get it because it's a privilege to be white. You don't experience what Black people experience, brown people, Native Americans. We have a horrible system and our roots are horrible. We stole the land of the indigenous people. We brought slaves to build our wealth. It's very hurtful to hear this conversation. Nick, I get it. It's provoking, thought-provoking, not for people like me. I'm raging inside my body right now. So I encourage you to read some books and educate yourself. Because I believe if you did, you wouldn't take this position. You wouldn't dare even say it or think it or feel it in your heart, in your soul.
Okay,
That's it.
very, very moving comments, Laura. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to give the floor to
Agreed.
Mitchell. I think Mitchell had his hand raised, so Isaac, just hold on just a sec. Maybe you can raise your hand, we'll go around.
Let's hear from Mitchell.
And I think Hanya
we'll let
wanted
Nick talk to Laura because I think he'll agree with her.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, oh, sorry.
I teach college in a small town of Iowa. I teach engineering. My students hardly have the money to go. When they get out, they're in debt. But I wanted to talk about something else. The war system. Let's not say the military. Let's say the war system has 3 equations. Just like banks have their equations, where assets and equity and liability all come together. In war, you not only have your ability to afflict damage, you have your ability to recover. Currently in the United States, we have no ability to recover. We're basically thrown off the entire thing. Our weapons are useless without the ability to recover. So what I would like to say is I would like to fund the military more by funding our ability to recover more. And that means I would like to add 2 branches of the military, and people get paid well in it. And I would like them to be for disaster and climate addressing. So disaster change. Everything that is used to apply to taking care of damage is applicable to training for war. So we should fund it under the War Department. The Midwest just got hit and it didn't even hit the news, right? Nobody knows Iowa lost half of its farms last week. That means ketchup, mayonnaise. Now, you see, everybody thinks Iowa's corn, but they forget what corn is used to make. Eggs, our ability to make vaccines. 90% of our ability to make vaccines for the next 2 years just got wiped out. Chicken farms in Iowa, where they use the eggs to make the vaccines. So people don't even know the extent of it. Quaker oats, the big thing that makes the little breakfast cereals, wiped out. So we don't know how much their damage is because we haven't even got the power on for them to tell us how bad they're hurt yet. The National Guard only arrived yesterday. The storm was Monday. And we have no national defense system. So whatever we ask for any money, the military is going to fight us. Not so much the military, but the military suppliers. And I will be honest with you guys, I am a former military, worked for a former military contractor. So what I say is these people are capable of making the tools and equipment we need to address. There is a system that was put on hold because it wasn't felt necessary for war, but it's great for addressing disaster. And it's this large aircraft that can land without a runway, and it can hold like the equivalent of a freight train. So it could drop a hospital right behind a hurricane, right behind a derecho. How many people, we just got hit by what's the equivalent of a Category 3 hurricane in Iowa that covered from South Dakota to Indiana. And how many people even heard the word derecho? It's the Midwest version of a hurricane. So again, we don't have the ability to take care of a hurricane, and we don't have the ability to take care of a derecho, and we don't have the ability to take care if an 8 or a 9 earthquake hits on the West Coast. So I would like to see these large organizations that fight us and say, hey, do you want to keep on fighting for money to build war weapons? Or do you want to use your people to get a bigger order, longer order, and start making this thing to help people make their lives better? Put people to work.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to give Hanya the floor.
No, my only, I'm a child of war. I was raised in Iran, so I saw firsthand the atrocities that a war can cause a country. The country hasn't recovered from that war up to this day, and we lost so many young boys in that war who were drafted, and for no protection, for no reason whatsoever. We don't know why we went into war with Iraq. We don't really know. We knew who funded it. We knew every time you picked up a metal from the floor, which was a residue of war, and the bombs, we knew where it was made. So it's very nostalgic, this conversation for me. So I am for demilitarizing and defunding the criminalized army that unfortunately takes the lives of brown people overseas. And again, we rob our own people of Black and brown communities of the social programmings that they deserve here in this country. But Mitchell, my question to you is this, is you're proposing two branches of the Army, why can't we just leave the first respond to the organizations and fund those organizations? I'm a bit confused by your comment in terms of why we would need two branches of Army to do what FEMA is supposed to do with the funding that needs to be accessible to it, or even have that relationship with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, which happens to be the first responder in most of the atrocities around the world to respond to, again, disasters. I'm kind of confused as to why we need two armies, or maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I'm going to let Mitchell take that in a second, but I'd actually like to jump in here just because I think it also ties back into what Laura was saying. I first want to recognize and I deeply appreciate the principled and thoughtful and emotional, justifiably response that Laura had to what I said. I think this is one of the issues with communicating on the internet, I think sometimes, is that you don't know somebody, they say something, and there isn't enough time or a good enough articulation on the part of the speaker as to why I'm saying what I'm saying. And I think why this ties into what Mitchell is saying and what you're saying, Hanieh, and why I say fund everything, right? Some of you go, oh, so you want to fund war everywhere. That's not what I'm saying. I understand, though, the political system that we live under, right? We're in a very polarized political setting, and we're talking about very dramatic investments in a completely different framework for public spending. And just like socialism is a transitional state on the way to communism, I do believe, and I can't speak for Mitchell, but this is what I was taking from what he was saying. When you invest in the military to do disaster response and to do climate engineering, in the same way that today you have the Army Corps of Engineers that does a lot of things the military shouldn't be doing, it does tend to be a way that you can get it through that horrible swamp that is the halls of Congress, right? We need to defund the war machine in the long term. We need to defund the police as a paradigm for public safety. Of course, we need to do these things. We need to end war making as a foreign policy tool, period. It's enshrined in the Japanese Constitution. Why can't it be enshrined in the American Constitution? I think everybody on this call is an anti-war activist. I think everybody on this call believes in the Black liberation movement. I think everybody on this call believes in the necessity of an anti-austerity platform for the Democratic Party, and one that invests in the people. But we also have to understand that over the last 40 years, we have been made enemies of each other as Americans. Once we won the Cold War, the new enemy became the Republicans. For the Republicans, it became the Democrats. We started to hate each other, and we have to learn how to get past that hate, to stop seeing it as your interests and your things you want to fund versus my interests and my things I want to fund. Let's invest in a new generation of America. This is year zero. And then let's take all that money that is going into the military and let's reappropriate it for other purposes. But I'm telling you guys, as somebody who's spent their entire life trying to fight to make this country better and who has worked in these disgusting halls of power, if we go in trying to invest trillions of dollars into a new true social welfare system, and at the same time, we talk about taking all money out of policing immediately and in completely getting rid of the United States military, we will run into that beast that is the average fucking American. Excuse my language. Like, we need to figure out how to create a coalition that brings in everybody. And if I got to put money, I don't care what I got to do to get this money. I got to put it into so that the kids that I see in the bayous and the kids that I see in South Central and the kids that I see in the Midwest who are walking around with sneakers and their feet are coming out of the sides of their shoes. I want to invest in those kids. There's no reason that we have 3 people in this state who have made $150 billion since March, but at the same time, 1 in 5 people in this state lives in poverty. That is insanity, insanity. But to change fundamentally the way that works, we've all got to work together. We got to build a big ass ship in the name of Noah. And that's going to take working with everybody.
And I disagree
you.
respectfully. I think
Yeah,
it's,
Karamars, go
that's
ahead.
exactly why I was arguing in favor of a non-electoralist strategy yesterday, because even though I like Nick's framing of moving beyond an austerity mindset, 100% agree with you on that, Nick. But one of the problems that we see is right now, most of the calls that police are getting are calls that could be better handled by social workers or by mental health professionals. And there's a similar analogy to what Mitchell is saying. Yes, I think it's great to have more disaster response funding, but is the military the right institution for that? So I think those are questions that we need to think about. And then on the flip side, in terms of the strategy of getting it, yes, you're right, Nick, that if we work within the system that we see today, if we work within the paradigm of electoral politics, then the strategy that you talk about might make sense. And that's why I'm saying we need a different strategy. We need a different paradigm. And that's why we need a mass mobilization that shifts the quote unquote Overton window so that we're no longer forcing ourselves within this framework that is frankly defeatist in anything but the extreme long run. So I actually think it's important that we move outside of the austerity mindset, but at the same time, there are some programs that are materially destructive, like subsidies for oil and gas drilling. That's not something that I want. I want that to go away. Yes, that's defunding programs for the fossil fuel industry, not just tax credits, but there are actual programs funding them, you know. So I think it is okay to say that we support defunding some types of programs, as long as the basis for that isn't an austerity mindset, but rather that we want to protect people's lives and to protect the planet.
And I guess that
I think there's there was someone, is it Dayson Cohen?
Hi, yes, Dayson.
Oh, so sorry, Hania. I'll let you
Hey,
go next.
hey everyone, I'm an alternate delegate from the Cali 37th district. Just popping on to see what's going on and say hello. I guess I'm going to leave the video off just because I'm laying on my back, nursing my back right now. But I just want to say, I guess for me, I look at things a little bit differently. I look at just the trends in the country and the statistics of what exactly is a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, et cetera. I don't see the necessity to work with this nebulous idea of these other people. I don't know who these other people are. They're not a majority of the country. What I see is if you offer people populist politics, you offer them real economic framework to create a better life, which we have not done in this country in decades now. It's gotten worse and worse. If you recognize that the people that are under 35 are 90% with us, but that does not mean they're going to vote because our platform doesn't approve legalization of marijuana or helping them get out of college debt. And so they're not coming out of it. But if we recognize these things and we do what the party has been resistant to doing all these years, which is turning towards the future, we don't need to consider the 25% Republican voters out there. They're not necessary anymore. The future's come and it's swept them up. So to me, the issue is, you know, strategically, are we going to look for a way to get programs approved and do it through previously established lanes that seem to get the most funding, like the military? I don't see the point in concentrating our resources, our time, and our energy in that direction. I think the energy needs to be towards making sure that the party is representing the future. We don't need any of those people. We all keep hearing again and again, no offense to some of you who are on here, the party is women, young people, and people of color. That's it. The Republicans are 100% on board with catering to their base. The Democrats are not. So if we are catering to the base of the present and the future, all of a sudden, many of the issues that come up when we're trying to get things approved don't matter anymore because we've gotten more women into power, we've gotten more people of color into power, and we've gotten younger people into power. Or we have people like Bernie who represent those groups. I just think that's the conversation. You know, like coming out of this entire process for the first time, being more involved and seeing the way the platform committees voted, and we're still not representing the very people we need to come out. Instead, we're trying to cater to this idea of a moderate Republican who doesn't like, forget those people. There's not even that many of them, even though Trump won. It's because no one else voted. We could get so many more people to vote. I work with kids that are over 17, 18. I talk to them about their friends. They want to vote for a better country. They've only existed in a world where there's been war, depression, recession, terrorism, or quote unquote terrorism, and finally seeing the outcome of climate crisis. Their entire lives are shaped by hopelessness, if you really think about it. They don't have 8 years of the Clintons where we thought things were kind of going well, even if they weren't. They've never lived in a moment when things are good. So anybody who is 28 and under has pretty much their entire lives have been framed by understanding that their world is messed up and hopeless. If we can cater to those people, you don't need to worry about how we're going to get things approved, because all the representation in Congress is going to be catering towards those groups of people. So that's all I wanted to say. I think that's like the most important thing that this party continually misses out on. And that's the future is here.
Thank you, thank you, Jason, for those thought-provoking comments. I wanted to let Khanna have the floor, and then I think Mitchell had a
Well, I went because my question was directly to Mitchell prior to other speakers having the opportunity to share their words. My question was to him, and I do see that he has his hand up, so I'd like to give the floor to you, Mitchell, to respond back to my question in terms of why do we need that second arm of military to do what the first responders in terms of nonprofits can do?
Thanks. Because every time, even go back to New Orleans, we had New Jersey fighting against whether New Orleans should get relief. And I don't want it to be a question anymore. I want to divert the money used for making bombs to drop on other countries. And I want a guaranteed, doesn't matter. We have a force on the Western United States. We have a force in the East. They don't carry weapons. They carry food. They carry medicine. They carry whatever. Adequate training for people for the rest of their lives. So that we have a means that we give the people something, they come out of it. So just everybody, when they hit 20 or 19, 18, can go into this force without being worried that they're going to be diverted to go over and get shot at in some other country, and that the other country they go to isn't going to get shot at, and that they get an equal amount of money that the other military forces get, or more. And by that, we take away the fact that we have all of these military contractors that have so much financial inertia. We will not stop them unless we give them another path to discharge their funding through. So let's tell them to make stuff to help people instead of bombing and devastating people's lives for centuries. It's not going to be aid.
Go ahead.
I'd have this discussion elsewhere, and it seems like every candidate you talk to ends up getting kicked out. But again, I'd given it a lot of thought. I'd looked at vehicles. I've talked to Bebop Greska, who is helping India for Elon Musk on transportation, what we can do to look at transportation issues, issues that we can go through here. Like I said, I've been in the defense contractor, and I know that they make a lot more money than what we see. So we need to divert trillions of dollars being sent to bomb innocent children to being able to feed innocent children.
I'll tell you why I do want to kind of, make a point to discuss why a military in terms of a first responder can psychologically impact communities of color immensely. Yesterday, I was watching the presentation of Dr. Melina Abdullah and Baba Akili at the City Council presenting the People's Budget. And there was a young doctor activist who was in charge of collecting data to come up with the the people's budget and what people are interested in investing in their communities. And one of the things that was mentioned was that when he walked into the city council and he was greeted by the gentleman who was speaking, the young doctor who was speaking next to Dr. Abdullah Nikili, he said he was frightened by the fact that there were 2-3 police officers standing there checking his temperature, right? Police in this country means trauma for our Black and brown communities, right? So the point that he was trying to make is that we need to make sure that doctors and nurses are funded enough to stand here and instead of police officers checking a Black man's temperature, right? So when we talk about,
I really agree with you. I really agree with you.
But I wanted to finish one point here, and I don't mean to interrupt you. But Mitchell, for me to see someone who grew up in a war and who's seen the boots of soldiers and see the trauma that Iraqi children and children from Yemen have to face by watching the boots stomp on their grounds and neighborhoods, if you bring that Yemeni child here to grow up here, right, to go to school, I don't want to see someone with army suit giving me food. They've done that enough in our countries.
I don't
right?
think they need to have army boots. I just want them to be co-equally funded. In fact, base the funding of the other military services on the funding of the disaster services.
Okay.
So say you cannot spend $35,000 on bombs unless you spend $120,000 on the disaster services.
I agree with that.
And nobody says that they have to have boots. Why don't they have sneakers like nurses do? Why don't they have chef suits for the people that are feeding? Why don't they have nurses smocks or what? Forget the term.
And I truly hope that our country becomes a partner and ally with nonprofits and NGOs who work in terms of responding firsthand to disasters like Oxfam, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and organizations that have been on the ground for disaster relief. And hopefully we can get better and do better with FEMA in terms of providing that humanitarian aid to our people in our own country, right? And again, this is
sorry, I just want to say this is a very thought-provoking conversation. I just wanted to give a chance for those of you. I see we have 47 people, so more and more people are joining. I also want to just remind those of you who haven't seen our schedule. We have a great lineup of talks coming up. In fact, Khanna is help organize a few of them. And they're very thought-provoking topics ranging from, I wanted to say, the people's budget is really about the LA Black Lives Matter movement. We have some leaders from that talking about their success in LA, actually defunding the police and demanding the city council allocate more money to services, local service. So I think that's a very thought-provoking model. I know some of you have said, like Nick, that we can't do that, but to me, the BLM folks have actually shown that it actually is possible.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, anyway, I just want to say that is a model that seems to be working. So I wanted to just let people know that talk is coming up, and then following that is one on prisons, actually defunding prisons, and then another one, let's see, yours is, I'm trying to remember now, Khanna, yours is after that? Or before the prisons?
Mine is from 2 to 3. And then
2 to 3, before the prison.
20, and then we have one for foreign policy, which Farah Mars, who's here also.
You want to say a few words about your panels?
Farah Mars, please go ahead, because I'll speak on the people's budget, but you can go ahead and with the foreign policy, if you would, please. Do we have Farah Mars here?
I think he was. He might have had to step away for just a little bit.
Okay, no problem.
I think Nick, actually, do you want to say something, and then we'll go to Nick? Oh.
So this is something that I think, that maybe it's just because when I speak to my friends, they just take for granted kind of what I'm saying. I don't say defund the police, not because I don't think we should defund the police as it exists, but because we need to reinvent how we think of public safety, right? We need to defund the military, but not defund national security, right? We need to reimagine what that looks like in a diplomatic, multilateral, humanitarian way. So when I say fund everything, and I'm going to keep stressing that, we need to dramatically increase our level in public investment in health, in education, in housing, And yes, in public safety, but just in a radically different way than how we're doing it now. And that's the way that we're going to build a winning coalition, is because what we need to do is go into every community in this country, every single one, ask those people, how can we materially improve your life? And at the end of the day, whatever anybody mentions, it's just going to be money, right? It's going to be money in one form or another. That's what we all need. And we just need to spend that freaking money. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, came out and said that we have infinite money. Infinite money. Let that sink in. We as people need to take charge of that. Federal job guarantee I'm seeing come in the chat. That's absolutely something we need to do. We need to create a model of what I call sustainable prosperity. And I'm sure other people have come up with that term as well. We need to finance everything that is wrong in people's lives. I can't remember which speaker earlier was saying, you know, kids feel like it's just getting worse.
You know what's next? Can you please mute yourselves if you're not speaking?
And Linda, yes, no to the military in the way that you are thinking of the military, right? You're thinking of the military-industrial complex of war and death. I'm talking about a national defense infrastructure that is humanitarian. I think Mitchell and I share a very similar vision in that respect, that when you have disaster response, when you, like, climate change is the #1 national security threat in this country. A military that is responding to the climate disaster does not need to be wearing uniforms, doesn't need to be carrying guns, doesn't need to have jackboots, to Hanier's point. These are people that are going to be radically different than what we imagine a military today. But we built the interstate by appealing to the idea that it was for national defense, right? I don't think that it is reactionary of me to suggest that we should lean into a very human instinct to have security. We're just trying to redefine what security means. And I think I'm offering a model to try and sell this. I know some people said that the rest of the country is not necessary, but I have to say, I think we're a smaller group as Bernie-crats than we need to be a national movement. And there are ways that we can bring in more people. And I hope we lean into those ways.
I think Sudi, thank you, Nick, for that. I think Sudi had her hand raised, and then Stephanie is next. So if you could, okay, Sudi,
yes, I just,
go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to address the panel for the foreign policy, since Farmers was not on the phone, but listening to what Nick was saying, Nick, there is a huge difference on just printing money that doesn't have any backing with a country that is already in deficit and owes money. It's not just that the budget is not balanced, that we're basically a bankrupt, country, because we are not balancing our income and expenses. And therefore, this is just beyond basic economic, beyond basic accounting, beyond basic financing, that you cannot infinitely have access to money that you're not generating. So that just troubles me to think about. We have to cut spending on military spending that is just bringing destruction, but we can reinvest that money in many other things that you just mentioned. I think that's been a mantra of Bernie, and that's been what Barbara Lee has been talking, and many others have been talking. We can't just keep spending money on endless wars. And yes, we have to think about.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I've had a text from Lauren. She wants to go to a video clip. So, but I just want to let Stephanie, I think, has had her hand raised for quite a long time.
Not to cut you off, Sudi, you wanted to share some words about the foreign policy panel, which was discussed earlier, and then we'll cut to Stephanie.
Okay, then we'll go to Stephanie, and then the video. Okay, go ahead, Sudi.
Sorry. Mary, what you were saying?
Lauren texted me about going to a video clip, but we're going to have you speak briefly, and then Stephanie, because she's had her hand raised for a long time, and then we're going to Lauren's video. Well, I'll
Okay,
let you
no
know.
problem. So on the foreign policy panel, we're very excited. At 5 o'clock, we have a special message from Representative Barbara Lee regarding demilitarization and military spending, and that's how we're going to kick it off. And we have 5 prominent speakers, 3 of them who are California Bernie delegates. And the subjects are a variety of topics about foreign policy, nuclear weapons, talking about the impact of war, endless war, and other forms of war like sanctions, and how the foreign policy regarding Israel and Palestine has been impacting the whole world basically, and the recent accord that was announced, as well as the impact of coups and regime change, especially in Latin America, and many other related topics. So it's going to be very, educating and thought-provoking, and we invite you to be there at 5 o'clock.
Let's go to Stephanie. Thank you, Sudhi. And if you can keep our comments to less than 30 seconds or 30 seconds, that'd be great.
I just wanted to say, a lot of our issues with needing to defund the police could be, solved by actually investing in other programs like public health, like Medicare for all. A lot of these people that land in the criminal justice system needed some medical intervention. I have a good friend who struggles with bipolar disorder, and he's very poor, and he's been in and out of jail, 10 times probably in his life now. And he'll probably still keep bouncing in and out unless we can get some prevention programs in place for him. And, I think this all relates also to our military spending, because we don't have any international programs for prevention at all in the United States. Okay, we aren't reaching out to other countries like, those great organizations like UNICEF and Amnesty International. We don't have any federally funded international investments in people. And so it's very much related to the need to defund the police, just like defunding the military. We've got to start investing in people to avoid the need for any of these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, I really think we've taken a step away in the last 10, 15 years from investing in social programs. And that's why there's been an overgrab from the police and the military.
Thank you.
That's exactly right, Stephanie. That's why we need $10 trillion in social spending in the first 10 days of the Biden administration.
Well, let's cut some bomb budget and we've got it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think we could do both. We could do both.
I know there's a lot of passionate people here, but let's get to that videos that.
Yeah, we got a video that we get. So thank you so much for your passion. And Stephanie, are you a delegate from
Michigan? Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you for joining us all the way from Michigan. And
thank you for hosting.
Yeah, this is
you're from Michigan? That's great.
Yes, I'm from rural Michigan. Yeah.
This is the People's Assembly. We want to allow a floor space for everyone. So Lauren's going to go to a video now. So take it away, Lauren.
Yeah. No, actually, it's the schedule. Fooled you. Okay.
Oh, you said something.
I wanted everyone to get a chance to actually see it written out, what we have coming up. So at 12:30, we're going to have Norman Solomon on, and he's the Roots Action founder. He's also a Bernie delegate, and we're going to talk a little bit about the few things we were able to accomplish in this short whirlwind, virtual delegation experience. And then at 1 p.m., it's going to be super exciting. We are going to the Wisconsin Billboard Peace Rally. So we've talked a lot about what we should do about military spending. And so we have a huge event in Wisconsin. There's a billboard that they're protesting in front of. They're going to have a few speakers, including our own Marcy, who is here with us. And then it just keeps getting better, because at 1:30, we're going to have Khanna live, who's going to speak to us, who is the chair of the California delegation, and also a message from Barbara Lee. And then our afternoon panels are going to kick off. You've heard a little bit about them already. We have the People's Budget. We have one on prison reform or abolition, and then the U.S. foreign policy and demilitarization. If you're watching on a stream, you can join us in the Zoom meeting. It's super fun. We're having really interesting conversations from people from all over the country are participating, so we welcome you to join us. And also take our people's poll. So either in the description or if you're here in the chat, we have a people's poll just to kind of raise our voices and find out what everyone's thinking, and see where we stand and see where we go from here.
May I insert something really quick, Lauren?
Sure.
We do have a panel at 7 p.m. on climate change as
well.
It is okay.
It's my favorite issue.
That is fine. We made that announcement here, and our climate activist Isaac Lieberman here is also with us today, who's been a climate champion for years. And he's also one of our fellow delegates. So we'll be talking about the climate change and its impacts on our economy. So
yeah, and that's at 7 p.m. So we just, and that's also Green New Deal. We're going to have some local candidates from the California, San Francisco Bay Area.
I just want to mention, Mary, here that Igor just called me, and he's helped organize this panel on Green New Deal. So he's going to join us in about 30 minutes and say a little more about it, just FYI.
Great. So some of you are delegates, some of you are not, but as I'm sure we've mentioned a few times, and Judith Whitmer, who is actually, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Judith Whitmer actually joined us yesterday, who is, I think, one of the main founders behind this concept, is that almost 800 if not more, delegates to the DNC voted no on the platform on the basis that it did not include to strive for Medicare for all. And we've really drawn the line and said that this is important. And so a lot of delegates have been speaking out on social media, explaining why they made this decision. So we wanted to share some of those testimonial videos. We're going to start with our own Sudi. She is one of our organizers for this event and also a California delegate.
Today is August 11, 2020. I'm Sudi Faroknia, California Bernie Delegate to DNC 2020, and I just voted no on a platform. The platform that's supposed to be the vision statement of the party that is supposed to be the party of people, yet it's ignoring the wishes of American people. 69% of Americans are asking for Medicare for all. That's where I draw the line. I am all about unity in this party, but unity means that we have to come together. We need to listen together. We need to come up to solutions together. And right now, if we all believe that healthcare is a human rights, we need to show that priority in our vision statement. I ask Madam Speaker, please pass the damn bill.
So that was Sudi from California, and we're
that was
going.
Great.
Yeah, that's
great video. So you have another one you want to share?
Yeah, our next one is also from Cal. Well, actually, before we go to Dr. Bill, let's go down to this one. I thought this one was really good.
Why Medicare for all is very personal to me. I have a dead nerve in my leg. I'm losing more and more feeling in my foot. I'm in increasing amounts of pain, and I have been for 8 years. I have scoliosis. Over the last 2 years, my rib cage has slowly started rotating around my spine. And while my body faces this way, my torso goes this way. I also have some pretty severe PTSD from being a multiple sexual assault survivor on top of being a rape survivor and other traumas that I'm not going to get into. And I need a lot of anxiety meds to function. I can't work, so I don't have insurance, so I can't afford to go to the doctor, which means I ration meds, which means I can't afford to see a doctor about keeping function of my leg. so that I can at least be somewhat functional. And I haven't even discussed my kid with a rare disease. Like, Medicare for all fucking matters so much. Please draw the line.
I think that video is so important because
Very moving.
it's sometimes, you know, just advocating for these things, it's hard to understand how it's really impacting people's lives and what kinds of choices they have to make when put in this circumstance.
And what is so interesting is that 88% of Democrats want Medicare for all, right? So what is the holdup?
My name is Rochelle Pardue Okimoto, and I've been a nurse at Alta Bates Hospital for the last 20 years. The hospital that is in my neighborhood in Contra Costa County, Doctors Hospital, closed because it wasn't profitable enough. It mostly served low income and people that were minorities. Now, at my hospital here, Alta Bates in Berkeley, it's also threatening to close for a similar reason. They say it's not profitable enough. But as we all know, we've been saving lives here, people dying from COVID during this entire crisis. Right now, without Medicare for all, we do not have health care for all. And we need health care for every single American. And that's why I'm voting no on the Democratic platform. I've been fighting for the last 20 years to provide health care for all people. Medicare for all is the answer, and the time to do it is now.
My name is Cassandra Alvarez, and I'm an at-large Bernie Sanders delegate for District 7 here in Arizona. And I wanted to show why I support Medicare for all. I think that there is no better time than right now during a pandemic. My family, my friends, my community needs to have
Just want to say thank you for this forum. That's
I was
all.
25 when I was able to finally get a healthcare plan through my job, and I had no idea how to use it.
Thank you.
Having grown up with no healthcare, my friends, my family, we had no access to healthcare. We depended on the clinic discounts. My parents are still depending on clinic discounts in the community. So right now, there is no better time. We have to work for Medicare for all. Healthcare is a human right. It is not a want. It's not something that is just an option. It is something that we need, and it's something that we need to continue to fight for. Hello everyone, hola a todos. My name is Cassandra Alvarez.
And let's go to the...
Those are really great videos, Lauren.
I see Igor's face there, and I see.
Oh yeah, Igor.
I also want to say our musician is back. I think he has a better connection, Lauren. So if you want a song at some point from our...
That would be good, because in
let me
5
know.
minutes we were going to begin a chat with Norman Solomon, so we could do we could do a song until then. That's
Yeah,
let me stop sharing. How about that?
Those are great clips. So, but I wanted to work in our musician, our minstrel. Let's see.
And let me just add that if you go on Twitter and you look under the hashtag draw the line or M for all now, then you're going to find these videos. There's a compilation of these videos too. And it's just really moving testimony of everyone coming together for this issue.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. So Bill, you need to unmute yourself. I try to unmute you, but you got to unmute yourself.
I think I did.
Okay, great. So
Can you hear me?
I just want to do a quick intro. Bill is our local activist from San Benito County and Monterey Bay region. He was our musician for 2 fights against the oil industry, which we won, 2 initiatives to ban fracking and intensive oil drilling in San Benito County and Monterey County. So he provided the music for us with original songs. Go ahead.
Well, in the spirit of what Pete Seeger always stood for, this is my hope. And it's a sing-along. So the chorus, I start with the chorus, it goes at least 3 times, and I hope it strikes the chorus with you. Alone we are like raindrops, raindrops falling from the sky. Alone we can be like snowflakes, raindrops trying to fly. but together we can be a raging river. Together we can be an angry sea. Together we can move mountains. Together when we believe. So stand up, be counted. Stand up, you can right a wrong. Stand up when the odds are stacked against you. Stand up and let them hear you sing your song. Alone we are like raindrops, raindrops falling from the sky. Alone we can be like snowflakes, raindrops trying to fly. But together we can be a raging river. I say together we can be an angry sea. Together we can move mountains. Together when we believe. So let these songs we sing be for freedom. Let these songs we sing be of love. Let these songs we sing unite us as seas of change raining from above. Now come on. Alone we are like raindrops, raindrops falling from the sky. Alone we can be like snowflakes, raindrops trying to fly. But together we can be a raging river. I say together we can be an angry sea. Together we can move mountains. Together when we believe. I say together we can move these mountains. Together when we believe. That's my hope.
Thank you so much. We should, I just applauded virtually here. Thank you for that great song. And I wanted to also mention that every movement needs music. And so Bill has provided kindly music for our 2 anti-fracking campaigns in San Benito and Monterey, which were successful. So I think we're going to be going to the next segment. Was it Khanna who's going to introduce?
Can I do a little in-between segment?
Sure.
Okay, so thank you for everyone who is here. We have 56 people on the call right now. And yesterday we did a really good job spreading the word and getting our streams out there, but we could really use some more help. And so I want to show everyone really quickly how to do it so that you can share this stream that's going on right now, and we can get more people in the conversation, more people involved, and keep this movement going. So let me share.
You want to do share your screen or?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're going to go to the California Bernie Delegates 2020 page where the stream is happening. So it's California Bernie -2020 or Bernie Delegates -2020. And then here is where it's already streaming. And so you're going to click on share, and then you're going to get these 2 options, share to a group or share to a page. So you can click either one, share to a page, and then it's going to show you potential pages that that you're a part of. Now these are ones that I'm admin on, so you could also go to share to a group. And I think it just maybe it's because I'm admin, it's not showing up right. Okay, but search for all your groups. Okay, I guess I'm logged in as the wrong thing, so the tutorial is pointless. But if you go, this is the golden button right here. If you can just get to the share button, then it'll give you all kinds of capabilities so that
yeah, that's a great suggestion because I want to let people know that it's probably changed, but when Lauren checked last night, the shares or the views, I should say, on the various Facebook pages was over like 2,000. It's gone up probably, right, Lauren? That was just one Facebook platform, I think. Was it 2,000?
Yeah, we were checking the views. Yeah, we had 1.9 K views on one of them. So,
Okay,
and that was just in
that
one
was just one. So we're reaching a lot of people. So even though there's only 59 people in the room, we're reaching thousands, and the videos are actually being broadcast live streamed to Twitter as well as YouTube and many Facebook platforms that are Bernie, fans, Facebook pages. So we just want to let you know that you're going to be heard by thousands. And after this ends today, the video, it becomes a recording and many more people will hear it. So we just want to let you know that we're reaching a lot of people and we're very happy and excited about that. So thank you so much for sharing this people's platform. And now I think
Michael has something to share, he says in the chat. So Michael has been working really hard all weekend, and so he has been able to join us now, and he's going to be, one of our MCs for later on in the day. No, you don't?
No. Michael, you don't have anything to share with our audience?
Oh, he meant he'll share the post. He meant he'll share the post.
Got it.
Thanks, Michael.
Michael is a delegate and also a stand-up comic. So
we're gonna get ready for lots of fun and excitement. Okay, Hania.
Yes. So Norman Solomon, a man who does not need any introduction because his name is everywhere. Where are you, Norman? Can we go ahead and spotlight him? Hi. Okay.
Hi.
So Norman is a familiar face. If I do his introduction, I will not do it justice. For those of us who've been delegates here, he's shared his wisdom with us on many calls through Bernie Delegates Network, and I've had the honor of working with him on some projects as well myself. So, Norman, can you introduce yourself for those of us who are not familiar with your work? Because I'm sure so many of our delegates are, but we just want to hear from you about some of your accomplishments as an author, as an activist, and as the writer that you are. So you have the floor and the spotlight's on you.
Well, Hania, first, thanks for just all the great work you're doing and the energy and insights you've brought. This is such a collective effort, and it's hard to imagine just a few weeks ago, we came into this whole process with Bernie delegates from around the state, and it was creative chaos. And we figured out how to, I won't say make lemonade out of lemons, but some of what we were handed by the California and the National Democratic Party was a bit tart. And we needed to figure out ways to make something really powerful and creative out of this situation, a virtual convention. Some call it a so-called convention, but whatever you call it, here we are. And I'm just really feeling very gratified about what we collectively have done in the last few weeks. My own background is that I'm very proud that I later learned there was an FBI file opened on me at age 14. So I'm very glad. It was the civil rights picket line to desegregate an apartment. And years later, the Freedom of Information Act gave me that plaudit, which is really the biggest award I've ever won, I would say. But anyway, I've been involved in anti-war and social justice work, and I've seen my endeavors as a journalist, as a writer, as an activist, really as part of a weave together rather than separate. It's really the pursuit of the human truth underneath the media spin and the ways to really try to analyze, as I think we're all trying to do, how the power structure is configured and where the weak points are so that progressive values can be brought to the fore for everybody having access to healthcare, education, housing, the capacity to hopefully create and then feel like we're living in a society that we can feel good about. And I do identify with the bumper sticker. If you're not outraged, you aren't paying attention. we have so much, and perhaps more than ever, to be outraged about. And so then I feel, and out of my experiences, it's been borne out that when we harness our anger, our justified rage, that we can do a hell of a lot. So, you know, my own involvement in writing a dozen books, and for about 15 years, I wrote a weekly syndicated column and founded the Institute for Public Accuracy and co-founded rootsaction.org, which I hope everybody signed up with. We started with 0 activists online, and at rootsaction.org, we now have 1.2 million. And I hope it'll be 1.2 million and one. If you're not already signed up, just go to rootsaction.org. And I guess I'd close you know, this particular recounting by saying that 9 years ago, when my colleague and writing partner, Jeff Cohen, who founded the Media Watch Group FAIR, tried to assess whether there was a need for another online group, we came to the conclusion that we needed a progressive online force independent of the Democratic Party, fighting for not just progressive values in the abstract, but progressive policies, and that it should come and has to come and be powered from the grassroots. And frankly, we looked around, and when we were seeking independence from the Democratic Party to fight corporate power, to fight militarism, to fight what Martin Luther King called the madness of militarism, and we looked at groups that were doing some good work, like, say, moveon.org. When it was a Democrat in the White House, all of a sudden their anti-war fervor dissipated. And that's an example and also a metaphor for what I think we need, which is a single standard of human rights. And so at rootsaction.org, we've lived through Democratic and Republican administrations. We don't change the commitment to finding diplomatic solutions, to challenging the military-industrial intelligence complex, to saying that human rights are indivisible, and we're not going to have one set of them for some people and one set for another.
So let's talk about Norman. I know California had a very big influence on Khanna becoming the co-chair. And we do want to also pay an homage here to one of our delegates who just appeared on the call, Robert Nelson, as well, for some of the work that he did on this project as well. But can you please take us through what that process looked like? And most of us were a part of getting Roe elected and that push, but take us through what that looked like for the audience that wasn't engaged or involved with the initial organizing of that.
There was an assumption a couple of months ago that the way things were is the way they should be. And as the great Latin American writer Eduardo Galeano described that phenomenon, that attitude, it's the idea that tomorrow has to be like today, which is, of course, antithetical to what we're trying to do as progressive politics. So in this case, when we began to think, some delegates began to contemplate, well, who's going to chair the entire California delegation to the National Convention? The precedent was, well, Democratic governor, that's the person that will chair. And 4 years ago, of course, it was Jerry Brown who by default essentially chaired the state delegation. But many people, including Bobby Nelson and others who you mentioned, began to talk about, well, why not us proactively as delegates think about and then designate who we think should be the chair of the state delegation? And Khanna became pretty quickly the logical choice. He, after all, is not only a congressperson from the state of California, conspicuously, unfortunately, perhaps uniquely, a member of the US Congress from the state who not only endorsed Bernie, but in his case, was a national co-chair. And given that Bernie won more votes, popular votes, and delegates in the state than any other candidate, it seemed logical. So many people, including I'm sure many on this Zoom call, began to talk about, and really it was to me phenomenal because we didn't have a lot of time. And there was a statewide virtual meeting that was scheduled by the CDP, I guess it was in late June, where there was going to be a formal ratification. It was supposed to be sort of pro forma, rubber stamp, okay, it's going to be Gavin Newsom. And people start organizing. And so really into the dozens of people began to circulate a letter, which was an open letter that was housed on the rootsaction.org site. It was endorsed not only by Roots Action, but by Progressive Democrats of America, by many other groups, Our Revolution, California Nurses Association endorsed, Amar Shergill, the great chair of the Progressive Caucus of the California Democratic Party. People first a little bit stuck their necks out because it was uncharted territory, it wasn't precedented, and pretty soon the momentum really grew. And because of really tedious, at times, work, because that's part of what we do, is spreadsheets and so forth, the outreach began. And people remember back then, there were no PLEO delegates designated, there were no at-large. So we had a total existing database of 144 Bernie delegates in the whole state. And we ended up with 133 of those delegates signing. And I think by the time the power structure of the state party realized what was going on, not that probably they could have stopped it anyway, they were caught flat-footed, it was too late. Mm-hmm. And so I think that frankly, Newsom was faced with a couple of unpalatable alternatives. Either he could win in a close vote and be elected the chair, or he could lose in a close vote. And either one, as saying goes, would have been bad optics. So the counter proposal came from certain sources that Newsom would step back, would step out. And as we know, the proposal which was adopted was to have Khanna and Hilda Solis and PABBB be the three co-chairs. And I think that rippled across the country because other folks in other states saw that we could gain some power if we were assertive and we organized.
And just recently, Common Dreams published an article. Khanna pledged to vote no on the platform if it does not include Medicare for all. And this was an effort, for those of you who are new, that was led by our Vegas delegation in leadership of Judith Whitmore, who circulated a letter to our delegation asking for us to pledge to vote no on a platform that does not include the language of Medicare for all. Over 800 people have signed on to it as of yesterday. We're very proud of it. But let's talk about why that is so important for the chair of our delegation to join forces with us to say, no, I'm standing with the delegates from California and all across the country in saying, no, if we're not talking about something as simple as a Medicare for all being funded, why this is an inhumane issue, and why that's such an important message across to our progressive audience members and just America in general.
Yes, well, the polling is there, and one of the responses from the establishment has been, oh, don't be divisive. Well, if you look at the polling, the Harris poll has shown, and also more recently since the spring, Kaiser Family Foundation has shown, if you poll all of the registered voters in the country, Harris poll saying 69% favor Medicare for all. If you poll only Democrats as they do, it's 88%. So the question then can be raised, who is being divisive here? Is it a nominee and the proponents of a platform that exclude Medicare for all that's so dominantly supported by an overwhelming majority of Democrats and everybody nationwide? Is it people who are supporting Medicare for all, or is it the prospective presumptive nominee who's keeping up a stone wall against, if you will of the people? And of course, we're talking about life and death. We're talking about people who cannot get health care or who will wait to get health care because of this non-system system called premium and insurance company health care, often tied to employment, as is being pointed out a lot now. So many people have lost their jobs that are tied to health insurance. So this is a travesty. It's the opposite of healthcare as a human right. We've learned the hard way that just because politicians in California nationwide, as Democrats say, they believe healthcare is a human right, that just becomes sort of, nah, 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 nah. It's just their rhetoric, and we've got to hold them to their rhetoric. So I think it's meaningful from a, if you will, tactical political sense, and then profoundly underlying, because healthcare is so important. And among all of the vital issues, I think that Medicare for All has emerged as the most salient, powerful issue this year politically, and certainly going into this convention. And it's a category, I think, of big trees from little acorns grow, because just a few weeks ago, even the idea of developing hundreds and hundreds of delegates working together to say no on this platform without Medicare for All, it was seen like, wow, how could we do that? That seems very difficult. And the initiative, as you mentioned, from Judith Whitmer and the Nevada delegation made it all happen. I mean, they hatched it up, they began organizing. It went from that state to all the other states and all the other delegates. And just about an hour and a half ago on CNN, Khanna was interviewed live, and the interview included this question from the CNN anchor: why are you voting no on the platform? And as usual, Ro presented a very cogent, concise case.
As Karen Bass and Senator Nina Turner to be elected or selected for the VP position, and very, very proud to be a part of that movement as well. So tell us what's next for you after the convention, Norman.
Well, personally, I'm involved as part of rootsaction.org in a project called Vote Trump Out, and everybody's invited to go to the votetrumout.org website. Posted there right now is the first video that this coalition has put together. It features the voice of Noam Chomsky, and he talks about the necessity, the imperative of defeating Trump. And so we're able to, and this is part of the Roots Action program and what votetrumout.org is about, we're focusing on the swing states to say that we agree wholeheartedly and have been promoting the critique that Biden is a militarist, he is entangled with corporate America, he has a bad record on criminal justice, and at the same time, he is the only tool for us to use to get Trump out of there. And so our entire focus is on the 12 swing states. We have 3 full-time organizers now, Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and the other 8 or 9 swing states, reaching out to them as well to say, yes, we share your deep critiques of Joe Biden. It's imperative that progressives vote for Biden in those swing states to defeat this horrific neo-fascist Trump. And I would just add that as an organization and as organizers, votetrumout.org is not spending a single minute or a single dollar or a single breath trying to persuade people in the other 38 states to vote for Biden. It's just a waste of time. It doesn't matter how progressives vote in New York or California, etc. And I think that's an important distinction, because a lot of time is wasted, these sort of ponderous discussions about my conscience and this and then, this and that, how I vote. And as Noam Chomsky has said, I'll say it a little differently than he does. He says, you know, essentially get over yourself. It's not about you. It's not about your conscience. It's about what happens to people in this country and around the world as a result of the aggregate votes that people cast.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that our audience is very eager to ask some questions from you. Do raise your hands by clicking on the participants tab. And I know that Lauren has a question. Lauren, where are you? If you could unmute yourself.
Hi. Thanks so much for coming on, Norman. So
Sure,
short notice. It's like, I'm really glad you got to share these things. And also, I think we are all just kind of a little bit awestruck in the fact that, like you said, you have over 1 million followers on the, like, you were able to build this and get it out to so many people and provide that extra space for these to be talked about and communicated. Because I know a lot of us here are activists. We're working on things. We're trying to find ways to elevate elevate all our messages, bring us all together. So I'm wondering, I want to hear from you in terms of like getting Ro to be the chair and voting no on the platform. These are really pretty successful initiatives. So what do you feel like were the components that made them effective, and what can we learn from them in terms of as activists moving forward to get results that we want?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, really. It might be described as feet on the ground, eyes on the horizon. We need that combination just continually of being visionary and being practical. And unfortunately, so often we're encouraged to believe, maybe we're enculturated to think, well, being practical means not being visionary, or being visionary means not being practical. And I think, as in so many other cases, and I also mentioned again, the letter put out, hundreds of signers. We want Barbara Lee or Nina Turner or Karen Bass. That again was a creative initiative that at first might have seemed, well, how are we going to pull it off? So in the case of creating the atmosphere and the nuts and bolts for Ro Khanna to become, as it turned out, co-chair, it was really that incubation period. I'm trying, and then building on it. You know, Nina Turner likes to recount what Michael Renner, Killer Mike, says. He likes to say, and I won't remember this exactly right, but plot, plan, strategize, implement, organize. And that's the challenge. And somebody that I know many activists around the country, someone that we miss terribly is the former leader of Progressive Democrats of America, Tim Carpenter. And Tim used to say, the Excel sheets never make it into the history books, but they change history. And God or goddess knows that it is often tedious, uphill work that we do as organizers. It is sometimes described as the work of ants, A-N-T-S, but that's how history changes.
Thank you. Our very own Sudi, who's also one of the organizers of the Shadow Convention, has a question. Sudi, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, thank you so much. So we were very successful on planting the idea with Ro Khanna. As he mentioned, wasn't even thinking about becoming the chair, and we gave him the idea, we supported him, and we were successful on that. Can we do the same thing so he becomes the replacement of the appointee instead of the seat that's going to become vacant with Senator Harris? And has there been any conversation with him about it? I know there was a list that LA Times put out with a bunch of names, and Ro was on there, but any of our Ro, Karen Bass, Barbara Lee, we just need a progressive to replace that position. And Senate, what has become very, very evident is that House is important, but Senate is extremely important. So we need, there's some, a lot of weight we need to put on making sure that we get a progressive in Senate.
Yes, yeah, thanks for that, Sudi. And of course, we certainly hope under the circumstances there will be a vacancy where Kamala Harris now is in the Senate. I think that Ro Khanna would be a great senator, and the time is right. He really is, more than anyone else who is in any kind of elective position in the state, the logical spokesperson and advocate for the Bernie Sanders movement and Bernie Sanders base, the progressives in this state. And he's the logical one. I can't think of anyone else. And it's not to take anything away from Barbara Lee, who I have tremendous admiration for. Let's face it, she was the national co-chair for the Kamala Harris presidential campaign. Ro Khanna had the willingness to stick his neck out and support Bernie Sanders, challenge the corporate power structure. And so I think that the potential is there. I know there's some talk about him perhaps running if there's a vacancy. There are, some unanswered questions when we look at the law, and it's really a convoluted law when you read it. In California, the governor has the option to call a special election or not call a special election. It's entirely up to the governor. And what we know is that the governor does have the right and will appoint somebody. And then whether there's a special election or whether that person simply automatically serves the last 2 years of a Harris term, that remains to be seen. But I would say, especially if November 3rd results as we hope and will work towards the defeat of Donald Trump, then I hope on November 4th, a lot of us will begin really working hard so we can have a Senator Khanna.
We look forward to that.
Yeah.
And what I've learned about the California delegation is that when we put our mind behind something, it gets done.
Absolutely.
And we wouldn't be able to do it without the help and support of the rest of our nation and the delegates to the DNC. We want to thank you, Norman, from the bottom of our hearts for investing the time to speak to our delegates and our participants and attendees about the process that it took for us to get Khanna to become the co-chair of the California delegation. And we look forward to many more opportunities to work together with you under your leadership. Thank you for your time. And unless there are any other questions, we will say goodbye to you. And I will pass this over to Lauren to introduce our next segment.
Thanks everybody.
Coming. Thank you.
Ron, if you're there, do you want to say your comment from the chat?
Oh, sure. Let's see, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we had a event scheduled yesterday that was a event with Zephyr Teach Out, a real progressive stalwart from New York State. The reason there's no fracking in New York State, and a real thinker about corruption in America and also about the concentrated economic power in America. So Zephyr just wrote a new book about breaking up big concentrated economic power. It's called Break 'em Up. And we arranged a fundraiser for Khanna, who is the chair of the House Antitrust Caucus, co-chair, founding co-chair. And anyhow, that was scheduled yesterday. There was a problem just with Roe's set of events in Roe's world. And so that will be getting rescheduled it should be one of the coming weekends. So I'll be trying to get word out to everybody. But I really hope people will come and support that event. He is, as a sort of won't take corporate PAC candidate, needs grassroots funding. He needs a minimum amount of funding just to have his political function going, and that's some of it. I don't think he's in a tough election now, but if he ends up running, of course, part of the money from that kind of thing, running for Senate, could be transferred to that too. So I hope everybody will come join us for practical reasons and for visionary reasons, just what Norman was talking about.
Our very own Ron is a champion for Medicare for All, so we're very happy to have you here. If you could just post a link, because I do know that there is a separate RSVP link for this particular event that you mentioned, Ron. If you could post that for us, and we can definitely have our audience share it on their social media to get the donations up and attend the event. We look forward to it. Now, I do see Marcy here. We are going to be joined by Khanna shortly ourselves here. But before then, Lauren.
Our contacts at the live rally just logged into the meeting.
Yay, we're excited.
Okay. So let's see. Oh, there he is. Let's go ahead and give him the floor. But first I have to unmute him. So, and he'll tell us a little bit about everything that's going on.
For those of you who are just joining, this is Mira. I just want to say that this idea of doing using the technology, the platforms, was actually Lauren's. Well, I mean, she's saying no, but really, I don't think we would have done this if it wasn't for her. We would have had like separate Zoom meetings with different links, but She really had the idea of putting it all together using technology
You got
and also
Facebook?
live streaming. So anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say.
So everything that goes wrong, it's my fault. So don't blame anyone else. Okay, guys. All right. Sounds like we're here live.
Because what is your feedback there?
William, if you want to tell us anything about what's going on, feel free. Or I can fill the group in. There's the billboard. Can you guys see it?
You want to just say, kind of provide a little background, Lauren, until William maybe gets on?
Well, he's here. We just aren't getting the sound. So you can see all the people that are gathering. Hopefully they're all masked and social distance appropriately. So this is a protest that's going on in Milwaukee, which, as you know, that's where the convention was supposed to be held. So this billboard is outside, and so we have a variety of speakers that are going to be speaking about the need to reduce our funding in the military and what it could mean for our country. Does anyone want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that for those of you who were wondering why are we showcasing demonstrations in advance, and if you were here with us yesterday, you might have seen the rallies at Soledad and at Manhattan Beach. And the reason we're doing this is to show that the grassroots are always out there doing their thing and really helping to elevate these issues. And we want to encourage it. We felt that Black Lives Matter has been doing a great job, but during the pandemic, a lot of other movements, I haven't seen as much from Sunrise, for example, that I'm a climate activist. So we're trying to encourage, more activism and kind of get people to think how we can move beyond Bernie and advance our movement. So that's why we're showing physical events that are happening, rallies, showcasing that, because we do have a panel discussion about demilitarization later on. And so we wanted to showcase what is happening with activists even outside of California. So that's just a background on the thinking behind why we organized the events the way we did. So the afternoon is panel discussions to go into greater depth, but the activism that's out in the streets, we wanted to showcase that in the morning and early afternoon. Go ahead. Is William there to talk a little bit about his rally?
Can you hear us, William? We can't. Is someone speaking? I think we're going to feature the speakers here, but I don't think they've begun yet.
They have not. I don't
see
anybody speaking, but they've all gathered. Is that
you want?
Marcy is here with us.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to talk about your panel, because this really.
Or she's involved in this event too. Actually, she's a speaker for this event. I think.
Really? Oh, wow.
Let me unmute her now. She's struggling to unmute. I see that gorgeous smile. Hi, Marcy.
Hi. Anyway, I first want to just thank you. Lauren and Sudi and Mary and Hania and Michael and Eric, all of you who have worked on this People's Assembly. It's very uplifting, and I appreciate all the organizing that you've done. I do want to give a shout out to my friends in Wisconsin. These are new friends I've met over the internet. These are Bernie delegates, many of them, Bernie DNC delegates, also members of Progressive Democrats of America and other peace activists who have been working with Beyond War, David Swanson's group, and it's his group that sponsors these billboards. It's a fantastic billboard. 3% of our military budget could end global starvation. That's the start of a talk. So many thanks to our sisters and brothers in Wisconsin for this. I know they're doing some live streaming on Wisconsin for Bernie, or rather they're doing
we just have a couple, we'll be ready to go in a minute or so.
So in the meantime, I will promote our panel at 5 o'clock. I'll be part of that panel talking about foreign policy and demilitarization.
Audio. We're working on it. Yeah, sorry.
Oh. So
just talk over them. I don't want to mute them.
Okay, all right. So some of you know that we have a letter that's just being circulated. If you haven't signed on and you're a DNC delegate, please do so. Urging Joe Biden to hire new foreign policy advisors and not corporate lobbyists for military contractors to lead his foreign policy team. And I'll be naming names at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about alternatives to these names, resources that the Biden campaign could use, and ways to advance this agenda, a peace agenda, rather than relying on the Obama administration's architects of war and drone attacks. So this is serious business, and we're going to be pushing this message throughout the week, and we want you to join us in doing so.
And just to add on to what Marcy was saying, we do also want to send our thank yous and heartfelt appreciation to Cheng Sim, who is also one of the leaders in this, in putting together, along with Mary and Lauren, in putting this convention together and giving us the opportunity to all gather for 2 days. And I was just telling my husband, I said, it is so sad that we are not flying to the convention, to Milwaukee. We should be all gathering together and you know, safely shaking hands, you know, and we shouldn't even be in the midst of one of the largest, deadliest pandemics with so many lives lost. But here we are. We made the best of it, and so we're here together. And I want to appreciate everybody who's tuned in on their Sunday afternoon to watch our panel of discussion and join our speakers and leading in the progressive movement and taking it a step further beyond the convention. So Lauren, I will go to you if you have any updates.
So as you can see, they dropped off the call. So hopefully they will come back in and feature their speakers, but we were having some issues with the sound, but we did get to see, you know, kind of everything that's going on there, their signs, their gatherings. So, you know, we're supporting them, and so we'll keep on supporting them. And if they hop back in, oh, they're hopping back in.
I see William
Live TV, the excitements of live TV. But also, if we do get a second, I would like to show a clip from our event that happened yesterday at Manhattan Beach, at Bruce's Beach, because we have one of our speakers, and he just does a really good job of explaining why they're there and what we're about, and that's another way to feature our live actions. Okay, here we go. Let's ask to unmute and see if we can hear them.
Corporations than they are for the people. And unfortunately, this applies to both parties to a certain extent. And so I'm going to say, listen to the people, and you say, not the corporation. Listen to the people.
Not the corporation.
Listen to the people.
Not the corporation.
Listen to the people.
Not the corporation.
All right. Very good.
Yeah.
End forever war.
End wars forever.
End wars forever.
End wars forever.
End forever war.
End wars forever.
Stop the wars. Stop the wars.
Feed the hungry.
Stop the wars.
Feed the hungry.
Stop the wars.
Feed the hungry. Not the corporation. Not the corporation.
I'm involved in which is an organization that passed a referendum in Milwaukee. Now we passed 144 referendums. Let's have it for all the work her and her husband and her group done. Cities all across Wisconsin say corporations are not people, and money is not free speech. And so, anyhow, both Republican districts and Democratic districts passed that resolution. Okay, we got a couple more changes. Power to the people. There you go. Money for health care, not for war. I'll say money for health care, say not for war. Money for health care, not for war. Money for health care, not for war. Feed the hungry, end the war. Feed the hungry, end the war. Feed the hungry, end the war. I know Flynn will be talking about the virus. I'm going to have a little chance to stop the virus. Stop the virus, end the war. Stop the virus, end the war. Stop the virus, end the war. What about change? What do we want? Change. When do we want it? November. What do we want? Change. When do we want it? November. All right, all right. Beautiful people. Thank you very much for being out here. Can you tell us when you'll put the food in? Yeah. Okay. Better health care, not more work. I'll say better health care, you say not more warfare. Better health care. No 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 more warfare. Very good. Listen to the people. Listen to the people. Not the corporation. Listen to the people. Not the corporation. And forever wars. And war forever. And forever wars. And wars forever. And forever wars. And wars forever. What do we want? Change. When do we want it? Change. When do we want it? Feed the hungry. And the wars. Feed the hungry. And the wars. And the wars. Feed the hungry. 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 All right, all right. Cut Pentagon spending. Cut Pentagon spending. Feed the hungry. Cut Pentagon spending. Feed the hungry. Cut Pentagon spending. Feed the hungry. Better health care. Not more warfare. Better health care. Not more warfare. Better health care. Not more warfare. Stop the virus. End the war. Fight the virus. End the war. Fight the virus. End the war. Fight the virus. End the war. End the war. End the war. Feed the hungry. End the war. Feed the hungry. Listen to the people. Not the corporation. Listen to the people. Not the corporation. And forever wars. And wars forever. All right. I'm ready to change this one. I know. Hell yeah, Jim.
So William just said he's going to have to go soon.
Okay. Well, great. That's really nice to see
So
the
much
peace.
for bringing us there, William. Yeah.
It's good to see peace activists out there. Just want to let you know that I was working to organize with the Sunrise Movement a rally because later on, I see some folks who are working on the Sunrise, on Green New Deal later, but the Sunrise Movement didn't quite pull it off. So, but anyway, we were trying to kind of curate activism, but it's not always so easy to get them to do it during the time frame that we need it. But I really appreciate that we have a peace rally today. I think we're going to Khanna very soon. Is that correct? Just want to check on schedule.
You are absolutely right. And we have Marcy here, who will be introducing Representative Khanna.
Hold on. Another co-host is able to.
There's a lot of these people here that want to rev us up, talk about how important it is to military spending to end the war.
So does Marcy want to go next and speak a little bit about the upcoming panel discussion or anyone else in the afternoon? I think we have, actually, I think Igor might have joined already to talk. Are you there, Igor, about your Green New Deal? I figured we can have while we're waiting.
Let's show our speech from yesterday first.
Oh,
and then
okay.
Igor can get ready. Unless you're
I
ready,
see.
go ahead, Igor, if you're ready.
I don't actually see him. I'm just looking. He was going to join. Or if anyone else, let's see.
Here, I'll go. Okay, so this is from yesterday, and this was at Manhattan Beach, and he's going to be talking about a little bit the history of Bruce's Beach and what happened there. And so we also went live stream to them yesterday as well, and so here's just a little bit more footage, and so you can hear the speaker a little bit better.
Reparations, as well as justice for all. We're burning the streets.
I guess we're not burning the streets. Oh, that's too bad.
Oh, we got a little flavor of that. What happened? Do you have the Soledad rally?
I guess I have to download it. I have another healthcare. Oh, it's a good video. Okay, so you guys can go on Facebook and see it because it's been posted online on Facebook, and I think to our Bernie Delegates page. So, so go watch that video. Okay, then I guess we could go ahead to Marcy then.
Marcy, are you there?
Or Igor. Is Igor ready for the Green New Deal? Give us a pitch.
I don't see him in the room, but maybe Marcy, if you're.
Because, yeah, we could start. It's almost road time, so.
Yeah.
It is indeed.
See, oh, she's muted, so I got it.
Do we have to unmute her?
Yeah, let me just.
I'm gonna make her a co-host.
Sorry about that, Marcy. I thought you were unmuted.
Fine. So would you like me to introduce Ro and Barbara or just talk about what's coming up?
Well, let's do a quick what's coming up. And when he's present, we can show Barbara's video and we can switch over to him.
Sure, when he's on board, I'd love to introduce him, and then before we play the tape with Barbara Lee as well. So this afternoon is the People's Budget. And Hani has been reading up on that. She's going to tell us about that as well as the panelists. That's at 2 o'clock, but first we'll hear from Ro and Barbara. And the panel at 2 o'clock includes Dr. Melina Abdullah. She's the co-founder of Black Lives Matter. So we're very honored to have her with us. Also talking about the People's Budget, which is really about disinvesting or divesting from policing and prisons and investing in marginalized communities and housing, education, healthcare. We will have Kat Brooks. She's a poet.
May I interject, Marcy? We actually, Kat had to, a personal emergency. She and Baba Akili, we all know why, will not be able to participate, but we do have 2 other wonderful speakers that will be joining us. But go ahead with Gus Newport. Gus Newport will be also.
Okay, so they'll be talking about the work that they've been doing, amazing work in Los Angeles to advance this cause of divestment. Now, we know the LA budget under the proposal put forth by the mayor would spend about 54% of the general fund on policing and carceral institutions. So we're going to hear about what they're doing to drive change in that regard. After that, at 3:30, I believe, we have a panel on prison reform or abolition. What is the difference? Okay, so there's a marked difference between the two. And when we talk about prison reform, we're often talking about making prison a more comfortable place, right? Not necessarily reducing the population of the people who are inside the prisons, but training the guards better, offering classes, that sort of thing. Prison abolition is imagining a society where people are not locked up, where we approach the drivers of crime in a macro sense. So money is invested into the community. Because when you think about it, especially in a state like California, Ruth Gilmore, long ago, she wrote a book called The Golden Gulag about California and the trajectory we were on in mass incarceration, worse than many other states. Collectively as a nation, I think about, over 2 million people are behind bars. 4 million people are, when you add those who are also under custodial supervision, it's about 4 million people. So custodial supervision would be people on parole, people on probation, people on electronic monitoring. I didn't realize this until I started researching it, but a lot of undocumented immigrants, when they are released from ICE, are given electronic monitors to wear, which can be very uncomfortable and very restrictive. They go off, or they alert people when you cross the sidewalk wrong, and so forth. So you're going to be talking about the difference and what they've been doing to approach criminal justice from an abolitionist standpoint. When we were working on our criminal justice platform, and we submitted a lot of recommendations for the plank, we ran it by Patrisse Cullors, who's the co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter, one of them. And the response that we got was that she really wanted us to focus on abolition as opposed to better training of police officers, more training in de-escalation, because at the end of the day, that hasn't really worked, So we'll be
I just want to say, Marcy, because I know a little about, my husband is leading the panel. They're actually, the panel is made up of veterans who've been working on prison reform for decades. And so we also brought in a more recent kind of activists, younger activists, two actually. One from actually the Soledad rally yesterday, that's Tasha Williams. She's the wife of an inmate at Soledad. She led a rally yesterday and several more during Black August. But I just want to say that what the veterans have been telling me is that after working for a few decades on prison reform, they're concluding that it's not going to work. And they're agreeing with Black Lives Matter that we need to look at abolition and alternatives, for example, restorative justice instead. So I just want to just inject that.
Yes, one of the points they make about our present criminal justice system is that it's really not healing. It's not healing. It's not transformative for the person who committed the act, and it doesn't provide comfort or healing or redress, really, to the person who was the victim of the act. So that should be a very interesting panel. Then at 5 o'clock, you'll be hearing more from me on demilitarization and foreign policy. We'll also hear from Sam Hindi, who's a fellow DNC delegate from California. He's a Palestinian American. So I'm sure we'll be hearing about the impact of our foreign policy on the annexation of Palestinian land, the demolition of homes, attempts to erase the history of the Palestinians and their homeland. Robert Nelson, another DNC delegate from California, he'll be joining us to talk about issues pertaining to our weapons programs, in particular the nuclear buildup. One of the things that we asked for when we submitted our platform recommendations was the inclusion of a no strike clause, no nuclear first strike clause, because if nobody used nuclear weapons first, we'd never have to worry about a nuclear war. That, however, was not included in the platform. I will say some of our recommendations were, and it was a less hawkish platform than the one I read from 2016. We'll also hear from Ben Norton of the Gray Zone, I believe, and Ms. Amani, who's a human rights activist. At 7 o'clock, it's the Green New Deal. And somebody else may want to explain the details on that panel.
Well, we're hoping to have Igor talk about that, and I guess we'll just wait for him.
I think we may have some other climate activists. I know Alex Hagan might be here. He's a big advocate of probably Green New Deal. Otherwise, I'll say a few words. Anyone from the Green New Deal panel want to step up?
Mark is here, and he's going to be the moderator. Mark, is it okay if I unmute you? Because I did. Are you there? Okay, maybe somebody else. Unless you're there.
Does anyone want to say anything about Green New Deal? Otherwise, I'll jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the panel, to me, I'm a climate activist, so it's close to my heart. I think it's very interesting because some of us who have been working on Green New Deal a little I've been actually pushing to get our state legislators, this is last year, to take it on, especially after AOC really launched it at the national level. And you probably know, those of you who've been following Green New Deal, that it didn't get very far at the national level. And certainly at the state level, the legislators who are very progressive, who we know in my local assembly district, were really reluctant to do anything. Even the local state senator, Bill Monning, very powerful, leader in the Senate, said, we've already done a lot already. And I was like, that's not enough. We have a climate emergency. Alex might want to step in to talk about the climate emergency. So what's really exciting about the talk this evening at 7 o'clock is that Igor and Michelle and others have convened, working together with Sunrise and I think Our Revolution, Contra Costa County, to create a panel discussion about local Green New Deal proposals. So they are actually talking about, for example, Berkeley has put the Green New Deal, a proposal for Green New Deal on the ballot this November. They are not waiting for our politicians at the federal or the state level. They're going ahead. And I believe they'll be talking about other plans. So there's an author of a book called The Great Pivot. I don't remember her name, but she's also the panelist. So it's an exciting panel, and I really encourage you to attend. I will be going there myself just to listen because I'm very interested in that topic. So does anyone else want to step up to talk about Green New Deal?
I just wanted to say, if you get a chance, please visit my Facebook page, Marcy Winograd, and watch the video. One of our DNC delegates, Nadia Ahmad from Florida, is also an environmental activist, and she gave a fabulous TED Talk on advanced biofuels. I'd be interested in hearing what people have to say about that during the panel, about the need for laws and governance over the use of advanced biofuels, which would be algae and non-edible food sources and plants.
And speaking of Nadia Ahmad, I will definitely share that video with everybody.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
For all to watch. She is.
We have a hand in the room. Stephanie wanted, I think, to say something. Let me unmute her here. Did you want to say anything about the Green New Deal, Stephanie? Oops, I'm trying to. You have to.
Here, I got her. Okay.
Okay, there we go. We both got her.
I just wanted to say real quick while we're on the topic that there's a great organization right now that is called Climate Stick, and you can look them up. It's called it's just climatestick.org, and I shared the link there. It didn't highlight because I didn't write it correctly there, but it's a community education group to bring awareness about what climate change actually is, and they have free necklaces that they give out and send out and talk about how the necklace represents the historic timeline of climate change, of carbon emissions specifically. So look it up, check it out. I'm good friends with the CEO of the group, and we do activism events all over the place for climate change. And I just wanted to mention them real quick while we're on this topic, because of course, part of being able to sell the Green New Deal is going to be to sell it to the voters so that the voters really start writing in support to their representatives for it. And so, I think that can start at a very grassroots level with organizations like this. And I know there's a lot of them out there. I just wanted to mention Climate Stick to you guys, but anyway, sorry.
And we also do have Isaac here, who's a climate expert, Isaac Lieberman. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you could share some words of wisdom with our audience members, that would be fantastic. I know you've been engaged in activism in terms of climate change for a long time, so we would love to hear from you.
Hello, I'm sorry, Hanye. I was stepped away for a second. Did you just
I
say
did
something to me? Hello.
Surprise.
You're on. She asked you if you wanted to add anything about the Green New Deal or the camp coming up.
Oh my gosh.
Your
yeah,
environmental activism.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to. I long time ago, I was a political chair with the Sierra Club. These days, I talk a little bit more about Medicare for All than I do about the Green New Deal, because I feel like more people sort of understand it from a direct personal perspective as far as their health. And we know from so much research that once we get IMFA improved Medicare for all, we're going to save 68,000 lives at least every year, and $450 billion at least every year. So those are very concrete things that everybody can understand. But the fact is that the climate crisis is threatening not just tens of thousands of lives, but literally billions of lives. I was in Paris during the Paris climate talks, and I met a climate scientist from South America on the metro, on the way to the Eiffel Tower, actually. And we started chatting, and he told me that the best research shows that worldwide, for every 1 degree centigrade that the climate warms, roughly 1 billion people will die. We are struggling, are fighting to keep the control, the warming down to 1.5 degrees centigrade. The hope is that if we do that, we can prevent the worst of the irreversible damage that we know we're either at the brink of causing or already over the brink. So in fact, the Green New Deal, ending the use of fossil fuels, rapidly cutting our greenhouse gas emissions by at least 45% over what was 12 years when the IPCC report came out and is now 10 years, is crucial to having a planet that can continue to sustain human civilization. So it is the single most most immediate and important existential threat that we need to face and correct. So I'm really excited about the Green New Deal panel coming up later
Beautiful.
today.
And that is at 7 p.m. tonight, Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. I do have news that Representative Khanna has joined us. So we want to welcome him, and I will pass the torch over to Marcy Winograd, and we'll spotlight Marcy. So she can introduce our representative. Take it away, Marcy, please.
Thank you, Hania. And thank you all for being with us today, and especially Ro Khanna for taking time out for this People's Assembly Beyond Bernie. All right, so Ro Khanna, we know him. He's one of our 3 co-chairs. We fought for him to represent us, and we're very proud to have Ro as one of our national co-chairs, or rather our state co-chairs for the Bernie delegation. Ro Khanna, as you know, was the national co-chair, one of them for the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign. We often saw him on television speaking to news reporters. He represents California's 17th congressional district in the heart of the Silicon Valley. He beat a long-term incumbent for that spot. He serves on 3 committees in Congress. Ro Khanna serves on Budget, Armed Services, and Oversight and Reform. He is one of 10 members of the House, only 10 out of what, 450 something, who will not take any PAC money. In fact, he founded the No PAC Caucus. Imagine that. That was in 2017. He graduated from Yale Law School. He is the co-sponsor of the House bills on Medicare for All, a Green New Deal, tuition-free college, and a bill that would have workers in large corporations elect 1/3 of the corporate's board. In 2017, the House passed a resolution that he authored in support of ending the Saudi war on Yemen. As we know, Yemen is in the grips of a humanitarian crisis as a result of that assault. People are facing famine, an outbreak of cholera. It's devastating. And more recently, he was involved in a successful effort to get the House to go on record against funding that war. Unfortunately, legislation to that effect was vetoed by Trump. But the fight continues, and we are so glad to have you with us today, Ro. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, and thank you again.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marcy. Thank you for your great leadership on so many causes. on peace, on civil rights, on environmental justice. And thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for everyone on this call who are so committed to the progressive movement, to making sure that everything we fought for in Senator Sanders' campaign is reflected in our policies. I want to be brief because I'll tell you what our main fights are in Washington. We got an amendment passed for a 10% defense cut, not passed, 113 votes for a 10% defense cut in the military budget. It seems like almost passing it because we've come a long way to get 113 votes. That's significant. We spend more than the next 8 countries combined. We spend, as a world, almost $1.8 trillion on military budgets. Imagine if just a fraction of that every year went into fighting climate change instead, went into tackling pandemics. If only 10% of our military budget, which is almost $740 billion, were to go into helping fight disease, helping provide education and high-speed internet, helping provide and expand food stamps. The priorities are wrong. We have more money in defense than we know what to do with. And we showed that we can get many Democrats on board with a message that instead of spending money on bloated defense contractors that are going into the pockets of a few very small firms in the Beltway, we need to be investing in our people, investing in the Green New Deal, investing in healthcare, investing in education, investing in infrastructure, investing in high-speed broadband everywhere in this country. So I think that has to be the key part of our aspect. When people say, how are you going to pay for things? Defense is now over 50% of discretionary budget. 50%, over 50% of the federal discretionary budget is in defense. And then you say, that the Fed can provide trillions of dollars of loans to purchase junk bonds. I mean, and they can provide trillions of dollars to corporations. But when it comes to giving $2,000 to every American, suddenly we don't have the money. That is not just morally wrong, it's bad economics. I mean, our biggest challenge to the economy is that people don't have enough money to spend. There are people who can't afford rent. There are people who can't afford to put food on the table. There are people who can't afford the basic necessities of life. And so the idea that at this point we're concerned with deficits when the damage to our economy is taking place because people are being evicted, because people are not being able to spend money to put food on the table, and that's not helping create jobs. We are missing the urgent challenge. And that is why some of us are continuing to push for $2,000 a month for every American and get people the relief that they desperately need at the situation. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't address the post office, which is a very scary situation currently. I mean, this, in my view, is worse than anything of the other scandals. I mean, really, it's an assault on the right to vote, the assault on the ability to use the mail to get our ballots in, and the systematic removal of vote sorting machines is crazy. It is in battleground states. It's deliberate. I have said that we not only need to have funding for the post office, we need to have specific instructions of how much staff they need, how they can't cut overtime hours, how they need to have vote sorting machines, how they need to have the election infrastructure, the infrastructure for the election, and it should be subject to criminal penalties. So hold the Board of Governors and the Postmaster General accountable for criminally if they are not implementing what is needed to have a fair election. So we have to be very vigilant at every technique that this president is going to use, every technique and every trick in the playbook that they're going to try to use to discard votes, to suppress votes, to not have a fair election. I am so proud of everyone on this call for your activism. I know it can be discouraging that we didn't win with Bernie Sanders, and I know some people got behind Karen Bass and Barbara Lee and others for vice president. But I'll just say this, our progressive movement has never been stronger. We are on the side of the people and on the side of the popular issues. When people say, why did you vote against the platform of the Democratic Party? I said, because our platform in the midst of a pandemic should be for giving everyone health care. We can't have health care be contingent on a person's employment in 2020. And our platform has always stood for that since 1980. We ought to stand for those basic values. But what we have won is the public argument. Senator Sanders used to say this all the time. We have won the argument with people. They understand that we need to forgive student loan debt. They understand that everyone needs healthcare as a human right. They understand that people need assistance with their rent. They understand that we need a livable family supporting wage. They understand that we need stronger unions. We've won the public argument. Now we have to convince the insiders. We have to convince the decision makers. That is the key next horizon. But we have won the argument, the intellectual argument, the policy arguments. So this is not a time to pull back. This is a time to double down, to say we are committed to these policies, we're going to fight for them, and we're going to get them enacted. And I am so excited that this group, well beyond Bernie Sanders, has kept the energy and is going to help shape the future of California, the future of our country. And I really am grateful to all of you for your leadership.
Marcy, you're muted.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, here we go.
There you go.
Ro, thank you so much. Do you have time to stay for a couple of questions?
Sure, I can do a couple of questions.
Okay, people can put them in the chat. I'll start off with.
May I know Robert had sent me a message. No, that's okay. Robert had sent a message earlier. I wanted to make sure that he does also ask his question. So I'll give it back to you.
Okay, sure. Ro, a couple things. You mentioned the post office. What exactly can the House do? I know you could start investigating. Can you impeach this guy who's in charge of the Postal Service?
We can.
Why not why not introduce that? Because certainly we need to shine the spotlight on this. And the other thing I want to ask you about was, you know, Biden is coming in with some military contractors, or he has them on his team, lobbyists, corporate lobbyists. You founded the NOPAC caucus. What are we going to do about this?
Yeah, no, so first of all, the activism on the post office has worked to some extent. I mean, we have a long way to go. I was on CNN this afternoon, and many of us were out there, and Meadows, the chief of staff, has made a commitment that they're not going to remove any of the mail sorting machines. They're not going to remove the mailboxes. Now that we need to get them put back, the ones they've removed. But I think we need to pass legislation that, first of all, we need to remove DeJoy, and that Congress should impeach if he's not going to resign. And then we need to have legislation that really directs in very excruciating detail what the post office is going to need. How many people are they going to need? What the times are, the staff in all of these states, what the numbers of machines are, and to have them be accountable for that. And if they not just fund them, but that if they're not implementing what Congress specifically outlines, then they will be criminally liable. I think just giving them money is not going to be enough. They won't spend the money, or they won't spend the money on the types of things that are going to be needed to make sure the mail is properly counted. So it's going to be essential that we have very specific statutory language. The second thing, to your second point, I mean, I'm concerned about the defense contractors. We went after TransDigm that had acquired some of the small firms and jacked up prices 1,500%. So these defense contractors are profiting off a bloated military budget. They often are engaged in antitrust violations. And I think they should have no role in procurement decisions, contractors, lobbyists. So, you know, I've always been a straight shooter. Obviously, I think Biden will have a much more reasonable approach to this than Trump, where it's just a giveaway to military. But if there are abuses under the administration, even if it's a Democratic one, I'll call them out. And we need to have transparency, and we need to have accountability, and we need to ultimately end this revolving door between these lobbyists and defense firms.
Yes. Hania, do you want to read some of the questions? You want me to?
Well, sure. So I will have Robert unmute himself if he can. We'll do it on our end. And if you could ask your question that you sent to me privately, I think our audience members will benefit from it. Robert, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. And Congressman, thank you very much for accepting the responsibility of being chair of our delegation to the National Convention. I think you understand that progressives often have very strong wills and have minds of their own. I think there's strong sentiment in this room today for us looking beyond this campaign and looking on to what we're going to be doing in the fall after we elect the Biden-Harris ticket. One obvious point is the Biden-Harris ticket will create a vacancy in the United States Senate. Are you prepared to accept a groundswell of support from people like the ones on this conversation for a rogue Khanna for United States Senate campaign?
Well, I'm very honored by all the support to be a co-chair, and I'm not going to duck the question, but I will say this. I think the last time in 2016, I had friends who were planning to join the administration when the polling was up, and we saw how that turned out. So I really think all of us have to be focused first and foremost on making sure we defeat Donald Trump. I mean, if he gets back in and he puts in 2-3 more conservative Supreme Court justices, we could have a conservative majority and the counter majority in this country that strikes down any progressive priority for the next 20 to 30 years. So I think that's the most urgent priority. I do think whether it's me, whether it's someone else, that we need a senator from California who's going to be progressive, who's going to clearly support Medicare for all, who's going to clearly support a Green New Deal, who's going to clearly support student loan forgiveness, who's going to clearly support a livable wage. And so to me, my view of politics has been if you advocate for the right policies, the politics works out over the long run. And I'm certainly would want to work with everyone to make sure that whoever that is reflective of a progressive voice. Remember, Bernie Sanders won California decisively. Bernie Sanders won my district in the heart of Silicon Valley. People say, how do you represent Silicon Valley and co-chair Bernie's campaign? Bernie won my district because they forget there are a lot of working folks in my district, bus drivers and janitors and food service workers, and a lot more of them than the tech executives. And so we need to make sure that the policy that the senator of California, in my view, is pushing the envelope on progressive policies. But I am right now focused on making sure that we first win. And I'm very grateful that everyone on this call helped me become co-chair of the delegation.
Ro, Isaac said, how can we help get Congress and the media to start talking about the federal criminal offenses that any tampering with the U.S. mail constitutes, so that they will back off on removals of mailboxes?
I completely agree with you, Isaac. That's why I'm saying that we need to have a statutory plan almost. Let's have our lawyers and the experts in the House come up with a plan of what it's going to take to run a post office thing to meet the demands of all of the absentee ballots that we're going to have, and spell it out, and then basically have a statute of criminal liability for a postmaster general and for the board if they are negligent in following that plan. So I absolutely think we should currently, I think DeJoy's probably violated criminal statutes, and Bill Pascrell has referred him, and I think that's fine. That's symbolically important. Bill Barr isn't going to do anything. But I think if there is a statute and there's a threat of criminal prosecution for violation of that, some of these people will think twice, especially because there's at least an even, if not better, chance that Biden is going to win. And so I think they would be reluctant to, it's one thing to front for Donald Trump. It's another thing to want to go to jail for Donald Trump. But I think those have to be the stakes.
Ro, this is from Samia Assed. She said, considering the looming situation in the Middle East and a possibility of an upcoming Lebanese civil war, how do progressives work on a national agenda while fighting an increase of the military budget? And maybe you can just update us on where we are with the NDAA too.
Well, we voted no, obviously, on the NDAA. It's a $740 billion budget. It's a $140 billion more than where Obama left the defense budget, to put it in context. I don't see how Democrats can be opposed to Trump and then be voting for his military budget increases. And more broadly, I think in the Middle East, we have to have a reevaluation. I mean, I know everyone has been is celebrating the recognition of UAE and in Israel, and obviously it's better they're at peace than at war, but what happened to Palestinian rights? And Israel hasn't made a full commitment yet to stop annexation. They've said just have a pause. And UAE, as people on this call know, has been the biggest culprit for the disaster along with Saudi Arabia and Yemen. So I think we have to have a foreign policy in the Middle East that's grounded on human rights, not grounded on balance of power politics and trying to forge peace deals that don't take into account rights. We need a rights-based approach to foreign policy. And I think that has to be at the forefront of the next progressive, next Democratic administration, and certainly a progressive foreign policy.
Thank you, Ro. I do believe that we have time for one more question before we go to Barbara Lee's video.
Whatever happened to conflict of interest laws? Bill Weeks asks.
You know, one of the things that the Trump presidency has shown us is that how much of our democracy operates on norms and certain values, and we never had someone as brazen. I mean, I don't think even George W. Bush would have contemplated to corrupt the post office. I mean, I'm not saying that people have our past politicians have been ethical, but they've all had a sense of a line that they wouldn't cross. But I think what we need, and Elizabeth Warren, I think, has been very strong on this, is we need an independent agency in this country that monitors corruption and conflict of interest and the operation of elections and the operation of the safe guarding of elections. It's crazy to me that we have politicians either in Congress or in the executive branch monitoring corruption of themselves and monitoring their own elections. Most other countries, most other mature democracies have independent bodies, anti-corruption bodies, election bodies that are neutral, that are independent, that aren't subject to political forces. And I think that this has shown us the need for that kind of systemic reform, and conflict of interest would be one of them. It shouldn't be up to Congress to hold the president accountable, where Congress has a lot of other things they need to be doing, and Congress is inherently partisan. There should be an independent committee which has prosecutorial ability to refer for prosecution, that upholds ethics laws and anti-corruption laws in our government.
Thank you, Ro. And
I think Ruth Strauss has had her hand raised for quite a long time, Marcy. So if you could let her talk or ask your question.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to thank Ro for saying return the mailboxes, I mean, the sorting machines that were taken, because everybody's talking about don't take it anymore, but those need to be returned, and there needs to be an assessment, I think, by the Postal Union as to what they do need to handle this, and then that needs to be appropriated to them. And also, I think it's a blessing that you're on the House Oversight Committee, because as I understand it, that is the committee that oversees the Postmaster General. So, the last thing I'm going to say is I heard Tester from, I believe, North Dakota last night, and he is on fire, and he's a Republican. So I think this is actually a bipartisan issue that you can take advantage of. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with all your points, and let me end with that. And I agree, we have to not just stop more damage. They've already done a lot of damage. We need to fix what they've done. We need to have a clear plan for what additional resources, and it can be bipartisan, because the communities that are being most hurt are often rural communities, and they may be voting in person, but they're relying on the post office for getting medicine, for getting mail, for getting so many of their daily needs. And many of them really, their life will suffer if this post office destruction continues. So I'm hopeful we will get this resolved. I see now the urgency with the speaker and others, and the fact that Meadows is already backtracking, it shows that they're not going to get away with this.
Good.
Thank you.
We are behind you 100%.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Go forth.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ro, for joining us.
Ro.
Thanks, Ro. Great to hear you.
Yes.
Great to see you.
Okay. All right, Lauren, let's go ahead and switch to...
I think I'm going to introduce Barbara. No?
Oh, yeah, introduce Barbara.
Okay, so Barbara Lee, we know her. She's one of our co-chairs, and she's been in Congress for 20 plus years. Barbara Lee represents the 13th Congressional District in California, which includes Berkeley, Oakland, Alameda, and other Bay Area cities. She is probably most well known, at least amongst this group, for having voted against the original authorization for use of military force, which laid the groundwork for the invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq, multiple drone attacks on several Middle Eastern countries, and she has been involved in trying to repeal that ever since. Barbara Lee has also been very active in her community over the years. I'll start out with, she was born in a segregated town in Texas. When she went to high school, she was recognized by the local NAACP chapter, this was in San Fernando, for integrating the cheerleading squad. Go Barbara. She prefers the label pro-peace to anti-war because it's positive. And there are articles on the internet where she talks about how she came to that decision to vote against the authorization for use of force. And there was she heard somebody say something that really resonated with her, that stayed with her. Let us not become the evil that we deplore. So that was one of the primary drivers behind her decision to vote against that. She has worked in the community on drug programs, on mental health. She actually has a degree in psychiatric social work. In 1975, Barbara Lee joined the staff of Congressman Ron Dellums in the Bay Area. She went from intern to chief of staff to member of Congress, and we are so proud to have Barbara Lee as one of our co-chairs and thank her for all the work she has done. She has co-authored every major piece of legislation on HIV/AIDS. How about that? So without further ado, let's see the video of Barbara Lee, who, by the way, she probably will talk about this, has introduced legislation HR 1003 to cut the military budget in half.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Barbara Lee, representing the beautiful 13th Congressional District of California. Of course, yes, I say it's the most enlightened, diverse, and most progressive district in the country. Welcome to the People's Assembly, Building Beyond Bernie. And thank you so much for inviting me to join you virtually today. Thank you also for coming together to have this important discussion and yes, to continue to push for real transformation in our country. We are in the middle of so many crises right now. The pandemic that has taken so many lives, the worst economic collapse we have seen in our lifetimes, the global climate emergency, the crisis of systemic racism that continues to hold our country back. And on top of everything else, our democracy is in crisis with the president who is openly attempting to sabotage the vote in November. We have a lot of work to do to get Trump out of office. Everything is at stake in this election. It is literally a matter of survival, a matter of life and death, especially for communities of color. As my friend, our beloved Congressman John Lewis would say, we have to vote like we have never voted before in this election. And then, when Trump is gone, the work has got to continue under the Biden-Harris administration. Yes, we will keep up our work for a Green New Deal, for Medicare for all, for an end to America's endless wars, and for true equality and dignity for all. You know, my first convention was when I was a delegate for the great first African-American woman who ran for the presidency, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. And so I have long understood the importance of being at the table and working within our party to make it stronger. So thank you so much for continuing to do this work and for carrying that baton forward. Together, let's keep on fighting, and we must keep on organizing. And let's do everything in our power to send this racist, corrupt, and incompetent man in the White House and all of his cronies packing in November. Thank you again for for all that you do.
Oh, we are so sad that she was not able to join us in person. I'm sure there would be a great number of questions from our audience. But again, thank you for being here. And we send our blessings to Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
And let's ask our members of Congress to sign on to her legislation, H.R. 1003, to cut the military budget by 50%.
Agreed.